Mantenga a quienes lo necesiten. Velar por su seguridad y bienestar es lo más importante. Por eso los invitamos a seguir las siguientes recomendaciones de seguridad. En caso de una emergencia, mantenga la calma y ayude a quienes lo necesiten. Evite obstruir las vías de evacuación del recinto. Respete las señaléticas de evacuación y emergencia. En caso sea necesario evacuar, camine hacia las salidas de emergencia y diríjase a las zonas seguras.
En caso sea necesario evacuar,
Muy buenas tardes con todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome you again to the Mining Transition Energy Forum. We are living in decisive moments. Energy transition is at the top priority worldwide, and clearly in Peru we are creating and drafting the roadmap based on our reality and needs. Therefore, Peru enjoys having a privileged position. We have 8 of the 17 critical minerals for the transition, and simultaneously, we do have a safe electrical grid that is competitive, reliable, that will include the production of minerals. So here, we're going to have a space of dialogue and analysis where the experience, knowledge will turn into tools to face global challenges and to have shared solutions. So we're going to go back to our agenda. I would like to introduce Dr. Arnoldo Mateus van der Hort, who will give a presentation titled The Geopolitical Future of Latin America in the Era of Critical Minerals. Arnoldus Mateus van der Hort has a degree from the University of Barcelona in Germany. He's worked in over 18 countries of the 5 continents. He's an expert in renewable energies for mining and mineral geopolitics. He is the director of the Bremen think tank. He's also a certifier of critical minerals in the European Union, and currently the professor of the startup of critical minerals for the aid raw material of the European Union, and professor of the master's degree on energy transition of the Polytechnic University in Catalonia, Spain. Please, Dr. Arnold, you have the floor.
Hola. 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 No, déjalo. Está aquí. Está todo preparado, no te preocupes. Ahora me pongo un sombrero.
Well, I'm going to wear a hat now. And you will ask, what is this guy wearing a hat? So now you're looking at me. I drew your attention. Unlike the rest of miners, there's only attention given when there is a disaster or something fell, collapsed, or someone died. It is important to draw attention from the positive standpoint, not only to miners, but especially those who are outside of the mining sector. You, respectfully so, and and we know that we do so much good and we have so many certifications, but I think we need to know how to communicate to people otherwise. And communicating is not informing. Informing is by journalists. You need to persuade, and persuading is done by copywriters. And you will learn about this because a lot of politicians do this very well, and there's other sectors that do this very well. And so I will start my presentation. I'm going to remove my hat now, of course, because out of respect to you. And so I would like to say that the Minería magazine that was published this week, the first article that is signed by me and Jose Estela will talk about many of the things I will talk about today of the critical minerals.
Y creo que es... ahí tenemos, bueno. Bien, el título...
Okay, so the title... This is this is the presentation. Geopolitical future of Latin America in the era of critical minerals. Why the era of critical minerals? I think that we were talking about this with Alejandra. 5 years ago, almost no president of no country in the world knew what the critical minerals were. Now, pretty much, there's no country that doesn't know it. However, miners still do the same thing over and over again. They still think that, if you want to have a political career, you want to become a Minister of Energy and Mines, not so much being a president or being the minister's cabinet. And you need to think about that. So we need to explain why. And I will try to explain it first with a series of examples. These are examples that have nothing to do with mining. To begin with, this picture was taken 64 years ago in the Netherlands. The baby there is me. My family from the Netherlands was there. Of course, my mom, the shortest and brownest of all, because she's from Spain. And so why am I showing this? Well, this is just a little story that I'm going to divide in two parts, before and after. So 3 months later, they took me to my mother's town, and I stayed there in Palma de Mallorca. As you can see right behind it, there's very interesting rocks that, as a sedimentologist, you know what this is. And that's where I started being in love with rocks. And then I turned 18, and the picture there, the one with the white T-shirt, all cool, that's me. I was playing, yes, I liked symphonic rock. And so there was a moment where I decided to choose a career, and my moms, like many moms, especially because I was the oldest of both families, they wanted to have a doctor in the family, of course, Why? Because basically her lithic brain said, well, when I am older, I want somebody to look after me. So I tried to do that. At first, I couldn't, I wasn't admitted in the university, and then July, I applied again. I applied to 2 universities, and, geology said yes. And so before going back to medicine, I just stayed in geology. My mom didn't have a physician, but she had a doctor, a PhD on geology. So what I wanted to say is that we're all talking about sustainability. I like this quote from Máximo Pacheco, the chairman of Codelco. This year at the Minerals Forum, he said, well, he didn't say it in the sense of understanding the capacity that they need to be able to produce, or saying, I make a lot. But every day, Codelco moves 2 million tons of materials. At a year, this means 730 million tons. And if we do numbers and see how much all of the buildings on the Manhattan Island weigh, and we compare it, we realize that we could build 95.46 of all of the buildings in Manhattan. That means that in 4 years, it is the equivalent of building 5 cities like Barcelona. Another way of putting it, just to understand, Codelco produced 1.33 million tons of copper in 2024. So that's my question. What about the sustainability of energy transition? I mean, I like renewable energies. I've worked with them, but it's impressive, worldwide, because this is Codelco alone. So along the same ratio, this means that last year, so much material was moved for the copper that was mined in the world, and with that material we could have built 8.8 cities like Arequipa or 1.76 cities like Lima. This is the world that we are living in and we need to face. And we have heard politicians and everyone explain it. It's okay. Enough with saying that mining is bad. You are the ones who are asking us to do it, and we're trying to do it the best as possible. Because when we get to 2050, this magical year that everybody keeps talking about, the numbers will be even higher. it would be like building 20 Arequipas or 4 Limas. And so that's what we are doing. So when we are talking about minerals, critical minerals, there's a lot of confusion. You know, there's a lot of lists, and each one has lists. And you will see this on the magazine, but basically what you see here, the black one is what they call strategic minerals here on the bottom. And well, you see the black part here, they even include hydrocarbons as strategic, not as critical. And then this is not working. So we have mineral criticals, and within criticals, there's some that are criticals for energy. And when we have the rare earths. And so there's a huge confusion. And not only that, but also there have been many departments, and they have asked for lists from the United States, and they go to the different departments, and they have different lists. Some were similar, some were not, and there is duplication as well. So why am I explaining this? I don't know where I need to point to. Okay. What happened? Because if we speak politically, people don't really know how to do numbers, or they don't care about crunching numbers. This is one of the graphs, and besides all of the corrections that I've done, but this is one of the most famous graphs from IEA. I have been telling them for 4 years that they should be aware of what they're saying. I'm not going to explain it all because it's too long, but what it is important is that on those graphs on the top, first we have transport, and they tell us the difference between the electric car, conventional car, and that for electric car they need more metals or minerals. Then in the middle bar, so we have power generation. They say, well, we're doing the same thing. So, for instance, if I have the photovoltaic solar in each facility with the capacity of 1 megawatt peak, it's 4 tons of copper. And then for wind, and then they are so happy about this. Energy transition is not it's not a transition of the capacity, but it is a transition of consumption and electrical generation. When the photovoltaic solar, you know, I know that it doesn't produce at night. If you want to compare energy transition from one clean energy, from one dirty energy to another one, what you need to do is to transform that by the plant factor. And then it turns out that instead of 4 tons to change coal to solar, we need 4 times more copper. We need 16 times. And so these type of mistakes occur over and over again. And the worst part is that people just copy paste and they say, yes, the books are saying this, but for 4 years they have been saying this. And that's why I would like to say that it is very important. It is very important that we explain this, even if it's boring because it's numbers. We need to explain. So it is also important to understand the risks, the evolution of risks in mining. For many years now, they have been conducting a study. They survey CEOs around the world, and they ask what do they understand as the most important risks of mining. And so they think about they say opportunity risk, but I would 10 is the most important one, and then you go down all the way down. So I haven't included all of them because it would be too complicated. I just included the ones that I think are most important for today's conference: decarbonization, social and environmental, mineral, geopolitics, and social license. And then in yellow we have the costs in general terms. So what has happened is that, costs, there's years where they are higher and years where they are lower. But right now it's the 4th most important. Up to 2025, we have also asked the different CEOs how they saw this. So look at decarbonization, and you have 2021, 2022, it was the 2nd most important one, and then it has been going down to the 6th most important one. And I don't think that it's going to go up. I'm not saying that it is good or bad, I'm just saying what's happening. But then look at social licensing. it is very much related to social and environmental, and so they divided it in two different terms. They said, well, social licensing, it was one of the most important ones, and then it goes down. Why? Because there is political pressure. You need to give licenses and permits faster than before. And then mineral geopolitics is has a lot of ups and downs, but this is something that will continue being there. So we need to understand that while it is true decarbonization is very important, but we need to also understand what we need to solve. What we need to solve is the social and the environmental aspects. And social environmental, it's usually communicated in a different manner than when you explain it to the New York Stock Exchange. It doesn't really mean anything if you talk about certificates. You need to explain it in a way that they understand. And that's why we created this idea of the energy transition. And, you know, when all of this issue of the critical minerals is discovered, it's because it had become in the black swan of the 2030 agenda. A lot of people in Europe said, well, it's, you know, I thought that it was just like the sun is there and we don't have to mine anything. Well, it's not the case, but that's not a real problem even. For years ago, we started having, you know, the main think tanks and data centers started to demand more chips and green energy. Oh, you know, you need minerals too? How can it be? Yes, we need the critical minerals. This is what we call energy transition. These numbers mean that between this year and 2050, in total, we need 2.2 trillion materials, trillion tons. And so, of course, we also need to think about national security, and then with, you know, China looking at different materials like germanium. And so it is important here. We have the total numbers. A person consumes 8.63 tons of materials per year, per person. In 2050, it's going to be 9.28, but let's see what happens. In the case of the fossil mining, we see that increasingly we're going to consume less. That's real. It's not, but it's not at the levels that, you know, that people are telling us. That's why we need to understand it well. You know, it is true that we consume 2.0 tons per person in the world. In 2050, we will be around 1.59, which is lower, but still we are going to consume. And then something very interesting, the, you know, consumption of metal, especially in countries like Peru or Chile. Per capita consumption will go from 244 kilos to 444, and this is with 1.5 million inhabitants more. And then we have the non-metallic minerals. So this transition, it's an issue of risks, and these risks need to be translated into the concept of security. And then, you know, metals, energy transition, energy security definitely will use up 30% of the metals of the world. But then we also need to think about socio-demographic security. What does it mean, socio-demographic? I will give you 3 examples. Last year, in Nigeria, there were more people born than in the United States and Europe together. Did you know that? Do you know what world you live in? Do you know what is the city that speaks the most French in the world? Kinshasa. More than Paris. Kinshasa is the second city, the second most populated city, 83 million people. What do you think about that? But it's not only that. In 2100, of the most populated cities in the world, none of them will be China. 13 will be African. And so don't worry about African copper. You will, of course, need. So with this, what I'm trying to say is that all of these people will need houses, will need roads, will need everything. And that's where the risk is. And we cannot lose, you know, sight of rare earths, yes. But if you want to really think about that, if you don't want to have any problems, you need to provide solutions. And then we have this pie here, where we have 3 major areas: China, European Union, and the United States. And so they say, well, this is my critical mineral, this is mine, and then in the center, it's the food that goes for the three of them. And then the ones that are in yellow are the ones that you have in Peru, or at least this is what they say you have in Peru. So, okay, let's go have food in Peru. It's great food also. Well, so, I mean, the joke is a different one, because as reserves, Peru, Chile, and Mexico right now, they account for 36.3%. This comes from the USGS and the CSIS. However, mining production is 38.7, but then when we talk about refining, it's only 10.8%. So everything that you worked hard in copper, it's most of them are oxides, not sulfur. Sulfurs go to China. Sulfides go to China. So there is a new colonialism. I don't know. I would think this is a conference that I gave in Europe not so long ago, and I'm sorry that I added a typical dish from Spain. But for each food, I just added a rare earth. But then you see.
Entonces tenemos dos sillones, uno que ponía África, en este caso el otro Latam, son los que pagan la fiesta. Ellos pagan la fiesta, ellos comen y se van. Ah, mira qué bien. A eso yo lo llamo colonialismo.
And so this is what I call Pizarro-style colonialism. And so that would be one extreme. The other extreme is the Evo Morales model. We invite them, just take the money, and then we just kick them out, and then we're not going to pay. It's neither one thing nor the other. Why do I explain it like that? Because if I say that, if I criticize one or I criticize the other, they will both be mad. But let's talk about sovereignty of the mineral value. Let's come and we all eat, we all pay, and because you're here at home, I will invite you, but this is my house. And if we don't understand the importance of this, and I'm saying that this is the right time to do it because this is when you need it, and it's the hardest part. So I will go faster. So we have the promotion of the value added, promotion of innovation, competitive advantage. This term of sustainable governance, from every standpoint, and then of course call to action. And one that I believe is very interesting is the generation of think tanks, as like the Observatory of Strategic Minerals, and in Peru they could be led by the IAMP or the SNMP, with the associations and people from the academia, but especially people from the private sector, because the academia, and I'm sorry, I respect you, but I think that the academia is quite delayed or lag behind. Lag behind because it's not just science, it's also security. When you talk about this, everything changes. So in terms of government, you need a national policy on strategic minerals. Some things have been done in Chile, but they still have this bias, of climate change and coal, and I think there's more to that. And then lastly, the mining industry, you need to extract and export shared value and territorial development. And so, I needed the Ministry of Defense in Spain. They asked me to write a paper on how I, thought what my opinion was about the rare earths in Spain. And so, I explain a little bit how we need to change our ways of thinking so we can start mineral. If somebody wants the presentation, of course, we can share them. First, we need mineral intelligence. Then a second one, which is command and governance. You can apply this to Peru or to any other country. Instruments and then we have the mineral geopolitics, that is the soldier. Then we have the action plan is not so important. And then, well, the mineral intelligence, means creating an early warning system to understand what are the risks that our country can have. And so this, geopolitical risks is China. One of them is China, because, of course, it's important. Then we also can think about national intelligence, just like NATO does, because it's important. And then something interesting is to consider all of the services that provide intelligence and information. And then for governance, of course, we need to look at the most important ministries and ask them for their lists of critical minerals, because, you know, they say, yeah, that's something that they are talking about at the European Union. No, this has to be done in your department so that they realize that it's important. And then to have a general roundtable, I don't know, here I call it an interministerial roundtable, where there is a permanent technical secretary, there are reports from the Mineral Intelligence Cell, the Ministry of Defense, of course. They also need to consider this and other ministries. And then all of these instruments, you have the reactive protection system, critical infrastructure, etc. So you not only have to produce copper, but, you know,
tampoco no vamos a ser tontos. Y bueno, toda una serie de pasos, pero simplemente es el poder entender.
So it's just trying to understand that Latin America is a land with minerals and you can help, but of course you don't want them to mock you or to take advantage of you. And then, is it a mineral battle or a cultural battle? Well, of course, in the future we need to think about that. We need different types of professionals. We need professionals that need to persuade instead of informing. Don't inform me about how much you just tell me, persuade me, what is this going to solve? So, in this sense, so I would like to ask you, if we have a war, if we're going to have a war with, you know, two sides, to your left, you have in the barracks First World War with you know, newspapers and everything. This is the mechanism of communication that the army uses. And then on the right, what are the mechanisms currently? Social media. And then these are the miners. The miners are worried more about the press and the media and the classical channels, and I can tell you that while doing the promotion of these forum and on the Litamin, which is a LinkedIn group, which is I think it's 7,300. When I was promoting this event, I had most impact in Australia and Canada and South Africa than in countries of Latin America. It's just they don't use social media. I mean, if you don't like it, I don't care. We are in a war. And when there's people coming out and saying no mines, and you know, they don't know what to do, and they say no tourists, no cows, no, like they say in Mallorca, no to everything, no to everything. Well, no ceviche. Why? Well, I don't know, because we're killing fish. And so you just have to answer conceptually. Yes, yes to freedom, yes to human being. You know, this is what mining is about. This is what we have heard this morning, and it was very well explained by a colleague. We also
Inteligencia artificial, un poco de chiste. La von der Leyen y todos estos
we have all of these people that say, oh, I love mining. They have these pins. Yes, because they talk about critical minerals. But, you know, go take a picture. Don't come and you know, tell me lies, because it's not the case. Even the, you know, concepts and you know, why don't we have a minister for mineral geopolitics? And then when I talk about this, people laugh and say, yes, where do you live? We do have a new EU commissioner for mineral geopolitics. Well, I have 5 minutes. Okay. I don't know why it takes so long in moving the slides. The concept that we need to understand is that the mines will be the hospitals of the 21st century planet, where blood transfusions, which are metals, will combat the energy crisis, digital crisis, national security, and social demographic crisis. You are doctors. If you want to be something else, of course you can be, but you are doctors. Geologists, engineers, all of them will be doctors and nurses, and you will need a lot of them. And the patients that need to understand the doctors, because if you speak like doctors, then we don't solve the problem. And then, same thing for the CEOs and the leadership. I think we, it's like the little kids, when they play video games, they move up levels. And so this is what we need to do. And so these hospitals in Latin America can be considered as the best in the world. And this is where you have a lot of advantages compared to Southeast Asia or Africa. So, I mean, we can do it. You have the materials, but we need to understand this concept that mining is not either bad or good. It's the way we do it, and that's it. And then the paradigms have shifted. Now I will blow your mind. First, energy transition does not exist. Please stick it in your heads. Critical minerals do not exist. 3, sustainability is just an oxymoron that I am pretty sure that in the heads of a lot of people, they are tired of listening to the word sustainability. More so, even like Coca-Cola, listening to that word. And then the political agenda 2030 is a mess, it's a disaster, and you know how they do it. No. So why am I saying this? Because what we have is extractive transition. But, politicians don't like to use the word extractive, but that's it. That's the word. It's not energy, it's extractive. You need to know that, because what we are going is from coal to copper or from oil to rare earths. But either you like it or not, mining, it's the critical thing. What are you talking about critical mineral? It's the mining, not the minerals. And this is useful for everything. Even to build these huge buildings from Abu Dhabi, you need to bring sand from Australia because their sand is useless. For them, sand is a critical mineral. Well, now you go explain it to the politicians. And then the only thing about sustainability, which is important, to sustain what's unsustainable, it's stupid. It's an oxymoron. Maybe you want to say something else. There is a term that's called regeneration. We're going to listen to this. I need to leave things better than what I found them, not leave them the same. That's the difference. And then Agenda 2030 will, it's going to be for scientists and engineers and people that know, but for that you need to know what to do. So from October, I'm going to have 2 weekly emails talking about neuromarketing. It's like talking to the brains of people, not to the people. I am going to teach copywriting, how you need to write persuasively, and then also internal and external persuasive communication, and of course with the support of generative AI. And it's going to be free. Then maybe other things will be paid, but this is free. It's okay.
No son los minerales los que...
So again, it's not the minerals that really build leaders in mining, it's their words. And this is a quote from Robert Heller. In this sector, you either succeed or fail based on how you communicate. And I will end up talking about my mom once again. That's my mom, Catalina. I can't see this. 2 years ago, she died.
Voy. 10 años de...
10 years, she had Alzheimer's. And she had a doctor.
Se me olvidaba.
So I'm trying to say that it's important to understand that we are the group that needs to look after a society that has Alzheimer's, and they're losing the battle because there's only 3 things that are inevitable in life: death, as you have seen, taxes, and mining. And we need to remember that because people forget that. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arnaldos, for your presentation, for your huge knowledge, your honesty, your boldness, and your presentation shared in our sector. Now we introduce Mr. Moderator, Rodrigo Darquea, Head of Corporate Affairs in Latin America, BHP. We will be analyzing the topics that have been addressed in this session. This panel will be by Rómulo Mucho, former Ministry of Energy and Mines of Peru, Ms. Alejandra Cardona, CEO of the Argentina Chamber of Mining Companies. We have also Juan Bisset, strategic consultant in mining and sustainability, and also former subsecretary of mineral politics in Argentina, and another panel member, Mr. Juan Camilo Nariño, chairman of the Colombian Association of Mining. Please. The floor is yours.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this third panel to talk about this very interesting topic. I think that this week we've been listening many times that the world will be needing more critical minerals, energy transition, world demographic growth, digital revolution, etc., all these topics. And to give you a more concrete example, if we talk about copper, we in BHP last year, we made a study that concludes that world will need 70% more of copper by 2050. What is 70% more of copper? We are talking about 10 billion tons of copper. In addition, we have 15 years to discover, to develop, and finance and operate 10 billion tons of additional copper. So by 2050, we need 20 zero verdes in addition. So putting aside the numbers of the energy transition, if we talk about the traditional demand of copper, okay, I want to remind you all that that space is still going to require more copper. And if we see the population is still growing, the economic income of the population is increasing, so we then consume more energy, right? And just to give you a number and for you to remember, in India today, the consumption per capita of electricity is 1/7 of the per capita consumption of Japan. It's 1/5 of the per capita consumption of China. And just to remind you, we are talking about a country that has 1.4 billion people, and it's growing immensely. And having put you in this context, the question we would like to answer this afternoon is how to do things good in Latin America, how to do things right, how we can make use of this beautiful opportunity that we are facing now. This is a huge challenge, obviously, and this is why we have these extraordinary panel members this afternoon, and I am sure that they will be answering to all our questions and our concerns in the industry. So how do we put Latin America in the path to materialize what we are facing at? But I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position, but 600 million Latin American inhabitants to have opportunities. And without further ado, I would like, and we all like to listen to our panel members. So we are going to make 3 questions, and I will ask you to answer them in 4 minutes each. So first question is, after Mr. Arnaldo's presentation, thank you very much, Dr. Arnaldo's really important and disruptive information on many things. Latin America is emerging as one of the main players for the supply of critical minerals that the world needs. On the same time, we have been asking ourselves how Latin America is not only a commodity producer, a concentrate, cathodes, gold, silver producer, and we achieve somehow to keep moving forward in the value chain. So before your answers, I would like you to remind you that there is a country called China. They've been investing through decades in technology, infrastructure, and now they are leading the processing market of many of these minerals: nickel over 35%, copper 65, 70% of the smelting, and graphite for battery 99%. So taking into account that we are now in Peru and Engineer Mucho is the local player, we then ask you, Dr. Mucho, to start answering this question. Well, the real truth is that we are really delayed. I've just written a paper about the relationship between mining and energy. And in just few years, China has developed exponentially in the generation of renewable energy. Up to 2025, by the end of 2025, they will be setting this goal of 3,600 gigawatts. Last year, they've achieved 1,888 in solar energy, and a similar number in wind energy. So the problem then in supplying of energy is solved. It is true that this energy supply was for other different things, but there is another element. The data center and the artificial intelligence are going to consume more energy. So Germany consumes 400 gigawatts, but now they're going to start consuming what Japan, 940 gigawatts. This tells us to the Latin American countries we are rich in raw materials. We need to collaborate, to work together. And here the monopoly is in China, and there is a high level of supply. So we need to move forward in the processing, the refining of these materials. Why? Because the one managing these materials in energy will dominate the world, and they are doing this right now. Peru has its own resources, so we need to keep on exploring, moving forward with our products. And also Chile is expanding their investments. They have committed $25 million, and Argentina as well is starting, and we value that a lot, more than the 20 billion in 7 projects. Within a period of 5 years from now, they will be already operating. Ecuador, after 8 years, they've just started this Dome and Cascabel, El Domo and Cascabel, and then comes Warinza and other projects. And also, they are going to be in this race of supply. It is not only about producing, but how we engage and how we include ourselves in this race of dominating in these critical minerals and rare earths. I think that, well, my friends, after this commercial war, I've just dived into the reason of all this, and I think that we do not know that much of where these 17 elements of rare earth come from. They have physical, chemical properties that are very similar, magnetic, fluorescent, vibration. And China just gathers all this Shangan show, but they accumulate, they take all from the concentrate. Yes, we send concentrate copper, it has molybdenum, some silver, but we don't know more than that. And they are getting all these rare earth elements. And why we knew that? Because we have this La Oroya refinery. They got 5 main minerals, and they are taking the byproducts, and it was a big mistake to close La Oroya refinery. So we need to modernize. There is technology right now because the processing of this rare earth is highly contaminant, highly pollutant, but it's all about technology these days. Xiaoping in 1992, Mr. Xiaoping said, Middle East had petrol and China has rare earth, and now they are the ones leading the geopolitical weapon to lead the world. Thank you, Engineer Mucho. So I stay with your words of collaboration in the region. That's very important. Alejandra, please. Good afternoon. I would like to thank the organization for the invitation to participate in this panel. As Romulo said, Argentina is starting on this sector. They've just started in the lithium and now copper. Lithium has been producing Argentina since the 90s, but the destination or the final destination of that production were no batteries at that time. It was for other applications, but it's true that it has started to have positive perceptions about mining in the country, and this opened the doors to a more, to a strong, as Arnoldo said in his presentation, it's not only about the presidents, but the governors, and Argentina is a federal country, and the sustainment of this mining industry in Argentina is very important. So what do we need to do to move forward in this path that you are asking about? Currently, we have a very good production of lithium. We are the 5th producing country in the world. If we start operating the copper projects, we could go from 0 production to be one of the most important producers around the world. Argentina is a country that has structured itself based on farming and agriculture activity and has put aside other productive sectors. It is not then, it is normal to think that this will go together with the mining activity in these other industries to move forward in the value chain, thinking about the byproducts of these other elements of copper. Now, it is not something that is included in the agenda of the mining producers, but yes, in the government's agenda that have promoted those developments. But this also depends on other variables that today depend on the knowledge that China has and the progress and advancements in development of batteries and the markets they are dominating, not to be competitive in that production, that type of production. Refineries in Argentina, there is a small refinery, and I think it's the only one. Chile, I think it has a couple of refineries. So we then think it's going to be a good business. They would have been developed. So there is no obstacle to have that, but the mining producing Argentina and also in other countries has value added. Lithium from saline or brine solution. It's a sophisticated process, and it's very nice to see to go from a brine solution to a lithium on a hydroxide with this purity level required. It is a very huge value-added copper from a rock to get a metal to be used in other processes. It's not only a raw material, it's like those who will think that mining is about pick and axle and rock. So this is now a level of sophistication. The political agenda proposes some challenges that we need to consider. So we need to progress to reduce negative externalities. And I think that the businessmen are moving forward to in that path. Maybe this is not a complete answer. I don't have a 100% answer that is that clear on that regard, but we are on the path to go towards those results. Yes, Alejandra, thank you very much. I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I need to confess that my first visit to Argentina are really, really different from the latest ones. Yes, the governors will offer you the opportunities with the portfolios, with the QR code. Yes, it's really, really a big change.
De lugares, tal vez menos mineros.
Yes, less miners. For instance, in Mendoza, they were not that in favor of mining, but we have seen a very important change in the country. Yes, to add something else. So take in the some words of Arnoldo's presentation. We work based on perceptions and not reality, and the mining perception now is completely different from before, where the value that this brings to have a comfortable lifestyle and everything that is you want to have, people accept more this activity. Juan, can you hear me? Yes. First of all, I would like to thank for the invite to Perumin and this forum in specifically. This is a great honor to be here talking about mining in a place where there is a large mining activity. Yes, we've just woke up to this sector, and we see in the region our brothers on this mining sector, and to see what we need to do. And I am very pleased to be here. I'm going to take things that have been said already, and it is even more difficult to say something interesting, having previous speakers already said interesting things. So, Alejandra, I would say that value added is clearly when you explore opportunities to develop value added and climb this value chain is a way to utilize what Arnoldo was presenting. A big demand where we sit at needs to be taken as a great, huge opportunity. What we are experiencing right now in the region is an opportunity for this generation. It's going to be the first and the one time opportunity to be here in this time of this great relevance. We've been now the preferred party when before we were not led to be part of the group. So we need to do this, and this will give us more relevance, and we will be serving and meeting the internal market needs. And maybe for this second round of question, I could make a reflection on that. Other things need to be done as well. And I think that the first of all is to be miners, be the miners of choice. The paper that Arnoldo's published in this magazine, they're interesting numbers per capita. The demand of minerals that we Latin Americans will have in the future and the supply that we have right now, we will be providers, the suppliers of metals. We will be producing more minerals than we produce right now. And there are other jurisdictions that are net consumers. Minerals are produced around the world. We need to be the best in producing those, to do that in the degenerative way. We need to make those in the most efficient way, with the highest benefit for the communities. We need to be the miners of choice, the ones that other countries will select, because minerals are going to be in other places like Canada and so forth. We need to be the best in minerals production. So one of the things I would like to highlight is that we need to understand now that we are in the condition and obliged to negotiate from a strong posture. We need to sit with these great economic blocs countries. We are the ones that provide something that is critical and necessary, and this will be more in the future. So it is a two-way conversation where we have things to propose. We will supply, we will have an offtake of copper, contract, or whatever. And what should we need to do then? I personally, I identify more with the Western world because of obvious reasons, cultural reasons, and this is a time as a region to propose what China has to offer us, what the European Union has to offer us, and the United States as well, and depending on what they can offer, we need to see what is the most convenient thing to take from all that to us. From this leading position in the sector, we need to serve our communities. I have two other comments, but I leave those for the second round. One thing that I would like to say, and one of the things that we should leverage to start thinking on the Saudi model, Finnish model, when there is a windfall, what we're going to do with that. We shouldn't spend that we need to spend those smartly for our society to be when our next generations will live in a different society than today's society. Thank you very much. This is an opportunity, a generational opportunity, as you said. We need to be strategic as a region, how to address. I take that message. And also to be attractive, because we are not the only region with minerals to offer, so we need to combine these two factors in the equation. So, Camilo, welcome. Thank you, Rodrigo, and thanks to the organizers for the invite. So I have two sections. What Latin America needs to do to participate, and the value added that we need to have in the discussion that we've been having. So I'm going to start with the first part. What Latin America is missing, of course, we are in Peru, close to Chile or next to Chile, and this makes us to be a mineral or mining continent. But it's not like that. Really, we have half of Latin America and the whole Central America, including Panama, and we are debating to include whether to include or not Colombia, if we are going to be miners or not. And I would like to make use of this world dynamic where to participate in the geopolitics around the world with this opportunity in the mineral. This is just one condition.
I really hope that we go fast and we start with Colombia. It's just making a decision of becoming a mining country and act consequently, like in Ecuador and in Panama, where today they're still debating if they have a $10 billion investment, if they are going to take advantage of it or not, and then act accordingly. And to actually have all of the policy and regulation that will help this. But of course, we have Colombians, Ecuadorians, Panamanians.
Hoy el mundo está sacando una regulación.
And so right now, of course, we need legislation that will attract investment, that will somehow develop long-term mining as it should be.
In some Latin American countries, maybe half of those countries, Colombia is one of the most beautiful examples not to follow. In the past months, to have a regulation to do exactly the contrary, to not take out our copper geologies were like, well, we have the porphyry of copper in Colombia, the largest of the world, still unexplored. Because in Colombia, 90% of the Colombian land has no exploration, don't have any deeds. The same Ecuador, the same Central America, the same Panama. And there is a future, the real future, to utilize all this world dynamic that is happening right now. But for that, we need to make the decision to do that and to have and to draft regulations. And now I'm going to talk about the second part. And this is something that we are making or being more comfortable every time. Mining shouldn't be just a condition if it is given a value added. And this is a conversation that can be transferred to the mining companies. So you are the great presenter on this. We know how to produce minerals. We will not take out minerals of aluminum, copper. I am good extracting minerals, and my investors, and I've specialized 50, 60, 80 years for that now. And this is not a conversation that we need to put aside. This means that it is not necessarily a condition that should be imposed to the mining sectors and the mining companies. Because if you see, if we keep on with these conversations in Colombia and in these days, Panama and other countries, we will be just putting a stop to the mining development that we want to bring to the mining companies, the world-class mining companies, because those world-class companies do not produce other things than minerals. As a state is required to make a discussion. Maybe I could use an analog. For a copper smelter, more to produce copper, you need to have cheap energy as a special condition. I've been in some fora of energy producers, and none of these producers was proposed that they need to give value added to energy, that they need to produce copper cathodes or aluminum plates. Why? The mining sector is required to do that. So, well, I'm going to stop there because I run out of time, and I give more time for the panel. So thank you, Camilo. In the last dance, right? Our last dance in Latin America to have a more representative role in the world. And this is a topic that is really true. In my career path, I've been selling commodities for many years. When China had this great condition of smelting, I remember that the concentrate or the ore was received at negative numbers because the ore or the concentrate, were higher than the smelters, and this was a terrible business. Smelters in Japan, in Europe, in China, please stop building smelters because this is no business anymore. So, Camilo, you shouldn't be simple when I ask for more value in my resources. And even worse, you want to build something, you want to produce minerals, you need to build a smelter, okay? It sounds elegant and nice, right? But it is just politically easy to keep on with the discussion. Thank you. I agree with you. Thank you, Camilo. And the next question now. I want to go to some more concrete things. We've talked about the problems, what we can do. We have great excellence and great point of view. But I would like to ask you if you could share a reality, a model that you know is developing solution for the critical mineral challenges, maybe in Latin America or outside Latin America. I don't want, I'm going to change the order. So Juan Camilo, please go first, and then we continue with the other panel members. I feel like we all are in this dynamic to start to understand. Other companies are investing more in research, in the processes of those minerals to give more dynamism, to many other concentrates. Others, from where I come from, Quito, productor de carbón, they are hoping to move forward in the research of capture of CO2 on coal or carbon. So we are here, we are all in the world in that same dynamic of trying to look for good uses, better extractions, better uses. And I just want to add something else, that it's a critical part of this whole discussion or debate. If the world needs more minerals, if Latin America have those, and possibly Colombia, Argentina, of course, Chile and Ecuador. This means that we need to extract minerals at all costs, in any place, in any manner. Well, the response obviously is no, right? You shouldn't extract from glaciers. We shouldn't do mining without following standards with the capacities necessary to do that. And this is another field that the mining companies in the private sectors are working more on this, and maybe we do not talk about this enough, and we do not feel proud of this. The other field on how to supply minerals is how to do that in a good way and how to do it better every time. So there is companies' practices, and they evolve in other countries in a permanent basis adequately, that they take this a challenge that humanity imposed to them. So it is not only about the use of the critical minerals, but also how within my specialization, within what I know to do, extract minerals, how do I assume this challenge? So I'm going to assume this challenge with regenerative sustainability. Maybe there are some minerals that exist that we don't even know, we haven't processed, we haven't extracted, but they are going to be required. So there is also a space there of that perfectioning and innovation of the industry, that this is something that I wanted to highlight. Juan, some concrete example that you would like to share? No. I'm going to talk about a more general approach, but I would like to start from a very important point. As Romulo was saying at the beginning, and yes, I feel that this is a great panel. Thank you again. There is an opportunity to collaborate and to complement each other. When you say that there is a gap or deficit of 10 million tons of copper per year, Chile, which is the largest producer, we need 2 Chiles. This is a deficit per year. And when it is a deficit of 0.4%, this means that 99.6% of the material moved is not copper. So as a sector, we have a really gigantic challenge in front of us, monumental. And as Juan Camilo said, this will require to do it not in any way, and we won't have enough effort from the academia, the government, this third sector to think as a group, collectively, what do we need to do? Maybe this is something utopic, but in the some place of the slide of the last presentation, this is something that I've been thinking about. So there is no competition in the demand that we will be facing for Peru, Chile, Panama, Colombia, Mexico, and Ecuador. So we will hardly meet the demand that we will be having. So we need to have this complementary option. So maybe this sounds kind of a utopia to coordinate all countries. Maybe I was. This is something that has been done in the past, and it is possible to do this in the future. And this will be a huge advantage to have these tables where we are going to claim for our thing. Instead of doing 3 roads in parallel, let's do a big one that will serve all needs. And maybe it will be worthwhile to keep on moving. And because of the volume that we will be producing and the energy from Vaca Muerta, of the renewable energy of Ecuador, Chile, Peru, or whatever, we will be in the conditions to start thinking about refining. And it will give us more relevance for the future discussions. Or we shouldn't need to think about supplying the external market, but maybe inside my country will serve internal market in the value chain. So concrete examples you're asking me, and I will answer you with something that sounds a utopia, but it's really worthwhile. This challenge and the opportunity it brings with it, I think, I hope we will be at the level to be able to face it successfully. So first of all, collaboration. We had one of the CEO, the executive of explorations of BHP, and he comes from the oil sector in BHP. We had oil and gas. And it's amazing how that industry changed their mindset. If you see all the oil wells in the Gulf of Mexico, these complex, deep wells, all of them are developed collaboratively. You have BHP, Conshell. This is a whole industry that learned because of the conditions, and maybe we are cornered in some way in a situation that we need 10 Cerro Verdes in 15 years. So people in mining sector know what this means. So this phase that goes from the exploration and the exploitation, it's huge. If we don't work together, not only collaboration between companies, but between countries, and we have a huge agenda to develop in that matter. I'm going to try, okay? I hope it's concrete examples, yes, hopefully. So I was thinking about the concepts mentioned. So there is something that we need to define, a definition. The country needs to have a definition if they want to become a mining country or something else. So to make a decision is to set actions to achieve that goal. This is something that it has been happening in Argentina for some time. So Argentina, the mining sector is one of the sectors that could contribute to not just only produce cattle and soy. So from all the political range that exists in Argentina, maybe we need to change the how we want to achieve that. Argentina, it's a federal country, so it's like it's made up of small countries, and each province will decide how to develop their sectors. So each province has its own oversight entities, and these grant the mining concessions, and they keep an eye on the mine sites. So we have 3 provinces that produce lithium, and they've proposed 3 different things on how to develop this. So they need to start talking and to reach an agreement. They are the same with copper. So these different provinces that produce copper need to sit down and start reaching an agreement on how to manage this. So we have a treaty with a contract with Chile, or maybe I'm going to start talking about the triangle of lithium. Chile produces, Argentina produces, but Bolivia still a little, and maybe they could overcome their limits and to be in a better position. Maybe there is a triangle. Maybe we could have a triangle, Peru, Chile, and Argentina. We are not in the conversation then, or the discussions about this. But surely in a few years, we will materialize these projects. So these alliances that come from the decisions from those who have the power to lead the destination or the destiny of the inhabitants of these territories, they will set the actions and allow to see the concrete projects. So the impact of those decisions are huge on those provinces. Just observing the map of 20 years ago, where the mining activity was pretty much irrelevant, this accounts for 80% of the exports of each of the provinces. At the country level, mining is still a small portion, 6% of the exports of the total country, but each of these provinces account for 80%. So in this huge and vast country, to make focus on these specificities is the way we need to think on how to move forward in the future. So a concrete example that I could contribute with is the need to overcome these differences and to harmonize policies and decisions to conduct a synergic future. Thank you.
Ingeniero, mucho.
Para mí, igual como decía colega, no.
So, as I was saying, well, I don't know of any case that is advancing on critical minerals. There's only one that's relatively new. This issue of critical minerals, I talked to Mr. Fatih Birol, the chairman of the National Energy Agency, and in 2021 he published a manual, the Critical Mineral Outlook. It's like a Bible of definitions and, with tables and statistics and, based on the USGS and the British Geological Survey and Finland Geological Survey, the main 3 geological hubs. And why critical? And this manual includes a whole listing of all of the reserves in the world, resources, production and consumption, and it explains how much there is. And so and there is a risk in the supply, and that's why it has the name of critical. And then we just think about this. I know that STEM arrived late in Latin America, the distribution of knowledge, and then there was this whole narrative, anti-development narrative, and that has created a problem for the whole continent in South America, and it has taken it in oblivion. It's terrible. We haven't learned from Asian tigers, which is a little bit more recent, maybe China recently. Because that country is a continent. It has a big plan. It's going from the century of progress, and then comes the century of domination. And they had it very clear for decades what they needed to do, what they had to do. Universities, lots of universities, STEM careers. And so today, China, they have 3,500,000 engineers and scientists graduating every year. China is considered as the factory of scientists and engineering. And you know this, it's everywhere on the news. And then soon, in 2022, OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and then the race of AI started. Now, even the big tech companies are on the race, and only then they realize they need energy. Everybody is thinking, okay, where do we get the energy from? They are going to, again, reopen the nuclear reactor in Iceland. They have signed contracts with nuclear reactors, and then it turns out that they are still missing energy. But China had already thought about that. They already thought that whomever has energy will have everything. And in Latin America, and that's why I'm saying this, I don't know if it's going to be too late, to have collaboration, to just start in the process. We have stayed in the zone of comfort of selling concentrates or oxides like cathodes in some cases, but then, most of the elements except in gold. So what's left? We need a sense of urgency. We need to start having refiners, processing plants. We need to start getting the knowledge for transforming raw material. In China, they have 39 universities, 39 specialized universities that have programs on rare earths. And you know that Xi Jinping is a chemical engineer. He himself is a chemical engineer. He knows. He goes and oversees and looks at the labs. And that's where development is. So Latin America, what are we going to do? We are thinking in developing the projects, and we will still, sell concentrates or copper. I think it's time. Again, that's why I said that Loroya was a huge issue with all of these environmentalist narrative. And it's not just us. The United States, too. The Timan Island, which is the main rare earth mine, is sending all of their materials to China to be processed and refining. And they only realize that they are slaves. And they say, I apply 145%. They said, okay, I close the tap on you of the critical minerals and rare earths. And that's why I'm saying we need a geostrategic plan, geoeconomical plan that is more updated to history. And so we really realize that digital economy is the one that will dominate the world in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Engineer Mucho. I think that you are touching upon, you've hit the nail in the head, really. This is an industry where you need stability, you need vision, you need planning, as you very well put it, long-term planning. And we are in a region, of course, in democracy, where in most of the countries, we're not going to say all of them, but they just last a few years, sometimes less than, their official terms. And I'm not going to dwell on the reasons why, because this is not what gathers us today. But how are we going to simulate this and then going back to the example of the smelters. And then they said, why are you still doing this? They were thinking about 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line. And then we were talking with Dr. Arnoldus, and they were scratching their head and say, where are we getting the copper from? Because copper, we're not getting it to do our products. But copper, you need to buy the electrical car in China.
Vemos de esa disyuntiva, no tengo la respuesta, pero creo que es un tema fundamental.
I think it's key. And then to wrap up the panel, I just want to go to something more personal. We have 4 leaders here in the mining industry, and so I want to ask, what are you going to do, each one of you, from wherever you are in your roles, in your spaces? You are at different moments, professionally, with different responsibilities, but what will you do from wherever you're standing to allow for this opportunity? It's a generational opportunity to materialize. If you want to talk about your country or your region, up to you. And we will start with Alejandra. Well, what a question. So from the institution that I represent, which is the Argentine Chamber of Mining Companies, one of the major challenges that we've had in this last time is communication. This recent era is communication, and not just information, as Arnoldo said. It's being able to translate that into benefits that this really gives to society. If a mother or a father receives a call at 3 a.m. and it's, and their son is out, and their son is out partying, and the son calls home, and then the father and the mother will feel at ease, but that's because they have a cell phone. And so Argentina is right now in a complex situation. If we compare it to the rest of the region, and this is something that I always say whenever we have to participate in regional fora, there's a lot of social issues that Latin America is going through that Argentina doesn't have. Argentina has macroeconomic problems and quite unstable economic policies. So it's very difficult, beyond being a country that has turned into one of the favorite destinations to invest in exploration. It's very hard to convince companies and authorities that this is a long-term industry. In Argentina, we don't know how to think long-term. We always think short-term. It's very hard, very difficult to think about infrastructure, planning of education, because in order to educate on STEM, we need to promote that at a very early age. We need to promote changes, social changes that will allow for this development to be tangible. So the challenge that we have then is to contribute to that. We now have the presence of major companies that are, joining in the countries like BHP, Rio Tinto. These are major companies, and they know what they're doing, and they decided to invest in Argentina. For us, it is a good signal. They have done a very good reading of what the status is. Now, what we have ahead of us is the challenge of being able to sustain these promises, to materialize them, to act accordingly. We are not capable of imagining. It doesn't matter if we have numbers and tons and volumes of production and what it could be in terms of exports. We are not capable of really sizing the impact that this transformation will provide the country with. When we talk about the bottlenecks that Argentina has right now, we think about the professionals that the industry needs, the amount of employees that they need to have, the amount of suppliers and vendors that they need, the infrastructure, mining infrastructure, railways, ports, communications infrastructure. we really have an opportunity that will allow us to transform reality, and it's going to change it completely. We cannot be naive and just, when they say that, well, history doesn't give you two opportunities, it presents itself in very similar ways. I don't know if you know Argentina's history. During the World Wars, it was one of the main suppliers of food for the countries that were in the war, and that's why Argentina earned its nickname as the grain provider of the world. And so also, in the international division of what we needed to do, we just needed to produce raw material, and we were the supplier of that. That's the only thing. I think this is something that we all share in Latin America. And like Juan said, and like our colleagues have mentioned here, we have this big opportunity of saying, okay, we can produce these minerals and materials that the world needs, but we also can set some conditions to provide those. And I think that is also related to, what countries we want to be and what kind of a region we want to be. Engineer Mucho. I would like a new general mining law for Peru because it dates back 32 years, It's a new reality. It's not what's happened or what is happening. We need a new law. We need to incorporate new knowledge. It is true, we need to have value chains. This morning, I have given a lecture on the UNSA, on the National University here. And, we were thinking about lithium. It's, one of many processes. If you sell $1 million as lithium carbonate, lithium hydroxide, throughout the value chain, you get all the way to 100 million. In other products, maybe 50 million. In other products, will be more than 100 million. It's incredible. That's knowledge. So a new mining law for a new reality. We cannot produce the same thing. Well, of course, there's very good studies, by the way, that discourage completely this idea. For instance, there's one saying that only you add $8 to maquila. So what are you going to have smelters and build a smelter? It makes no sense. And so they were asking a manager of a big Chinese company, why don't you reopen this smelter? And they said, no, we do have in China, we have capacity to do this. And everybody thought that they were crazy. And then other people said, no, let's just send everything that's dirty to China. Let's get them polluted. And now they are dominators. So we need a whole new sound, robust regulatory framework, and also we need to go more to scientific research, and then we're talking about collaboration. As a minister, when I was a minister, I had several meetings with ministers in Latin America, and this is just like a, high tea for old people. Let's talk about the scope and no, we need to talk the talk, walk the talk. Governments need to take this seriously and to convince the state. Only Chile, for me, only Chile is a role model. With a president in 1971 said, copper will be the bread for Chile. It's in Chile's DNA. Anybody who was born in Chile knows that copper is important. In Peru, we have made some progress, I have to say that. Yes, maybe 50-60% accepts mining. It was a lot less. In other countries, they are completely anti-mining. They don't want this. So, and they're poor. And now our experience in Peru, I think it's wonderful, and I want to talk to you about this. The suppliers, tech suppliers, they have given a giant leap. I went to see this company, a businessman who has developed technology in Chalhuahuacho, where Las Bambas is. hundreds of companies in the communities. And this is development because they are prioritizing them, they are training them, they are educating them, building their capacities, and the economy is growing, not just because of experts, not just because of the value of such and such. It's the value added, the services they provide. And then when I go there, I talk to Chilean colleagues. They don't have one company that exports machinery to the 5 continents, and we do have one. We have one company that does that, and there's other companies that are following them. So I think this is what has, given. This is what mining has given us, technology transfer. But we are still, in diapers. We haven't started to even walk yet. We need incentives. Nobody is going to come develop anything when you have conditions that are completely inflexible. Why has Argentina awakened? Because of RIGI, they will give facilities to taxes. They are going to respect the whole framework. It's the incentives for major investments. Mara, Pachonta, Jose Maria. You have friends. Makiwi. I've known him for 20 years. Peñasquito now has been developed by Makiwi. So this is what we still need to do, I think, here. That governments need to know the actual value of development and the worth of development. And then our revenue will grow, I think. We will have a better country with a higher per capita income. Thank you very much. Juan, what will you do for your industry, for your country? And then maybe in 2 years we will have a test for you. Well, Fernando Henrique Cardoso, President of Brazil, said that to govern is to explain, and I agree with that. For me, one of the fundamental things is that we need to understand as peoples what the situation is for us. I am going to go back to what Rómulo says, which is, I think, is super interesting, which is this idea of the development of a value chain as a need, as a necessary requirement for social development, and not miss the train, of history that I think we have already missed a few. I agree with that. We do, I think, need that value chain within the region, and I think we have it, and it's great. That is aspirational, but that we need to think about big, we need to think big, and we need to really try to do that. Now, I dare to say something slightly different, or 2 or 3 things different, because I am speaking after him, so I can say a couple of things differently. One is that the value chain is downstream and it's upstream. And what Rómulo said, which I think is excellent, it's all of the whole ecosystem of suppliers and providers and vendors. It is an amazing value chain, and the development of mining really harnesses on that naturally. And then if you add on top incentives, policies, legal frameworks, etc., then we will have something like Australia, hopefully, where the whole ecosystem of mining suppliers is bigger than the mining sector itself, and it's a purely exporter revenue. I would aspire to that too. That is also a value chain. Now, something else, going back to the examples, I think that we need to do things right until we get the conditions, to be set properly, to have, the whole chain from the lithium to the Tesla car. We need to be smart. We need to identify where we have the opportunity of developing this. I just have 2 examples that I think are great. Canada and Australia, going back to them. Both countries are huge mining producers. Australia has, I think I already said this at lunch, has the best siderurgical carbon in the world. Maybe the second best siderurgical carbon, and is the iron ore, the top iron ore producer in the world. And so if you take both, what's natural, it's the natural thing is that they would develop a siderurgical industry. Well, there isn't. They tried for decades. They failed and failed and failed. And so I'll just leave you thinking. Canada has aluminum industry that is big. Why? Well, because along with the raw material, they also have the energy. Clean, cheap energy that comes from the dams of the big lakes. And they did great developing this value chain, and Australia didn't do it great. So what does it mean? Basic, raw materials, they are a starting point, but they are not an end. They are just a means. We need to think smartly. We need to think intelligently. We need to have an open mind. We need to challenge ourselves. Where is it? The European Union has a way of addressing this that is called S3, which is smart specialization strategies. And so that means, where to foster knowledge. If I am the goalie, I am not going to be a back or an attacker. I need to pick my position, where I'm best, either, kicking or being a goalie, whatever. Personally, I am really bad at soccer. I am sorry, but anyway, it's quite poetic that I am from Argentina and suck at soccer. So we need to explain the opportunity that we have. We need to know exactly what the challenges are to foster public policies that will allow to harness and capitalize on these opportunities so that we don't miss that train, because it would really be a sin, as a generation. We really wouldn't be forgiven if we have this sin. Now, to complete that example on Australia, Australia is a country that has serious problems with energy, one of the top uranium producers, and they have energy problems. And so you say, what? That would be a great, sustainable energy if you do things right in a nuclear plant. But there's, resistance, there's perceptions, all of these, it has completely stagnated that agenda. Well, thank you for the recognition. So, Rodrigo, maybe I have a personal crusade during this month and the next year, which is eliminating a huge amount of decrees and laws and from the legal framework in Colombia that prevents mining development right now. And today, of course, they are just there because of an ideological issue, not because of a practical matter. So I think that if you ask me, personally, what is my role? What am I going to do? Well, I think that's what I'm going to do. That would be my contribution. I need to insist that that should be removed. Those laws and regulations and policies should not be there. We need to still keep on working on the constitutional demands. On next Monday, I have a new hearing before the judges of the Constitutional Tribunal in a new lawsuit that we filed to remove a decree that, of course, the decree says that in these areas that are determined by the government, there should not be mining. They ban mining, like we did with the law on non-deductibility of royalties. So the government wanted for royalties not to be tax deductible within the tax framework in Colombia. And so this is a personal crusade for me. It's not going to end on August 7th when there is a change in the administration. It will continue a little bit further down the road. And then there is another obsession, I would say, which is keep on insisting on this conversation in Latin America, and it has half of, that we're half of Latin America, they need to develop adequate mining policies. I think we should all collaborate and think better, and I think we should all have maybe some sort of a think tank or mining, laboratory of ideas, or in Colombia, in Ecuador, and in Panama, that there is not a regulatory mining framework currently. And other countries in Latin America. If we look a little bit further, Guyanas, for instance, they have a big amount of minerals. You know, that there is an issue. There is something that is almost, borderline an obsession. Our countries need role models. We need models and where that to maybe facilitate the local conversation. And I think these are two obsessions, if you will, these two topics. They are what I want to do. Thank you very much. With this, we wrap up the panel. We would like to thank you very much. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for the panel members, such a constructive dialogue. Of course, we're getting homework, collaboration, and looking for, value and grabbing this opportunity, this generational opportunity. I think this is a very powerful phrase. Strategy, how we strategize, how we collaborate, and how we break barriers, and how we not communicate, but how we persuade better. Nobody will leave here if you don't post on LinkedIn, I love mining. It's a challenge for all. And, jokes aside, really, as a region, we deserve a better future, and it's on us. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias a todos los participantes por el espacio. Ha sido muy interesante conocer las ideas y reflexiones de cada uno desde la mirada de sus países.
Thanks everyone for your contributions and ideas for the betterment of the region.
Bueno, luego de la foto, los invitamos.
After the picture, we have a 20-minute coffee break, and we will be back.
Una actualización será el receso de 15 minutos. Bienvenidos todos. Vamos a retomar el cuarto bloque del foro.
Welcome all. Let's resume this fourth section of the energy transition in mining. This section will be the future of decarbonization in Latin American mining, and we will invite Mr. José Stella. He will be the speaker of this section. He is from the National University of Engineering. He has an MBA of the ESAN Business School on renewable energy and electric business administration from Sweet Powers, Sweden, and an international degree on rehabilitation of companies granted by OTS Japan. And he has also served in different managerial positions as EGASA, Kawa, and Vulcan Mining Company. And he is CEO of Sami Energy Consultant Firm. And since 2020, he's leading energy projects of Poderosa Mining Company, and he shared his experience and knowledge in ESAN University and share also presentations in international fora in Latin America, and he will talk about reference of decarbonization in Peruvian mining and specifically Poderosa case. Please, engineer, you have the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being still here in this long day. So I have an additional advantage compared to my previous speakers. I have the knowledge and input of the previous presentations, and I am now able to answer some of the questions asked throughout the day. I'm going to talk about the decarbonization in Peruvian mining and Poderosa case. I would like to show you a picture. This is my little boy, Lorenzo. He is 7 years old. And before coming to Arequipa, I live in Lima. I'm from Lambayeque in the north part of Peru. Daddy, I have a gift for your presentation, and you could see this present. This is a small bird, and you will ask yourself what this got to do with my presentation, and we will see this at the end of my presentation. The reason this, well, let's talk about the problems that we have in the company, in this mining company, Poderosa, and the solutions we have proposed for that set of problems in the different projects we have, and we will show this as testimonies and some results that I would like to share with all of you to end with a important thing, a new narrative. We are mining company, Poderosa Mining Company. It is a family-based company, and this is its 45th year. We are the second gold producer in the country. We are located in the district and province of Patas in La Libertad region. You can see in that map in the right-hand side, we are in the northern part of Peru. We are in a remote area in the country, 300 kilometers away from the coast. The closest city is Trujillo, but it takes 10, 12 years by road. We have an annual average production of 300,000 ounces per year of gold, and we located between the 1,200 and 1,300 meters above sea level. Here, the people involved in the mining sector, you know how it is to work in a remote area at that high altitude. We need to take everything, food, petrol, energy, input for the mining activity, and this entails a big problem for us. So we have an electrical consumption to supply the operation that grows every year, 100% to keep the operation. We are an underground mining activity. We need to get deeper in our galleries. We need to build more substations, more compressors, more lighting, and the mining activity increases more than the mining production. So this energy consumption of 11% annually for the last 20 years adds to insufficient transmission capacity. Cesar Betran explained what happened in our country with the energy. They belong to the state. They are state-owned companies, and to keep quality, it's difficult. And Mr. Herrera as well, former Ministry of Energy, said so. So we have or get our energy from Irandina that has a limited capacity to supply energy. We need to have some strategies to invest in their energy facilities to get more electric energy, because we are in queue with the maximum capacity, reaching the maximum capacity of that line. So more consumption every year, more, well, not enough transmission capacity. These take us to meet the need of the energy capacity of the mine, and we need to start on diesel generator sets to continue producing. As said in the morning, the worst electricity is the one that it's not there. So we need to keep on producing, but we won't maintain this because this increases exponentially. This does not imply high cost, but an increase in the carbon footprints. And now I'm getting into the issue. This is a energy matrix, and what we've seen in the panel, the second panel today, on the presentation by the chairman of the COES, it's about electricity mainly, electrical matrix. But when we talk about energy, we need to add fuels as well. So in this matrix, we can see that we have electrical energy, a secondary energy produced by man. In brown, what we buy from the national grid. So the cleaner and hydraulic side increase because we sign contracts to buy 100% clean energies, and the hydraulic has started to increase. And what is in yellowish color is the consumption of fuel for all transportation, and this represents the largest carbon footprint in the mining sector. You can see there that in the past 2 years, this energy matrix is 70% fossil energy and 30% renewable. Coal and even the open pit mines has a very similar percentage. So we said in 2020 some decarbonization plans. Decarbonization understood as reducing the greenhouse gases. So the scope 1 for us for 2030 is the self-generation with thermoelectrical fuel generators, and scope 2, we used to have a contract that was thermal and hydraulic, and by 2015 we are proposing, or we are going to reduce our footprints, and we are reducing the fleet of transportation, and we are working already with our providers on this. And what are we doing in respect to all these three? In 2022, we have measured our footprint. In 2022, we were 55% renewable. And with the projects I'm going to show you, last year in 2024, we are already 76% renewable, and we are getting closer to our goal, 100% renewable in our electrical energy to meet scope 1 and 2. So in our case, we don't buy clean energy. Remember the transmission restriction we have. We are not interconnected to the national grid. It is away 120 kilometers away in Cajamarca, and we are really in a very remote place. So we make an analysis, and the line has no capacity, shown in yellow, and demand is the electrical demand is increasing. So if we don't buy more electricity from the network, or to build more lines, or to have a project on clean energy, we will be using that much fuel, and we will be producing 173,250 tons of CO2. And 2-3 years ago, it was 70,000 tons. And this is the growth year by year, and it's going to be growing. And this represents more petrol. And we make this conservative calculation of $240 million, and you could imagine their faces, the CEO faces of the company. It's not only about emissions, but costs mainly. I'm going to show you right now how the projects that we plan in 2020, how we are going to reduce those emissions. And we propose 9 plans. We've executed already 6 of these 9 between 2021 and 2025. And we are executing these 3 to meet that zero goal in 2030 for scopes 1 and 2. And this graph shows the projects, how they have been included by a year. The one in yellow-orange, we've started to invest. We needed to invest in Hidroandina station for electrical machine, to buy more electrical energy, to install also solar devices. In red, this is what we want to reduce down to 0. And we are on that way. And we are a little bit more comfortable in moving forward with these goals. I'm going to show you some testimonies on this. First, we started with the aerodrome, where we get into our mine site. So the fastest way to get there is through a small plane, a 1 hour and 20 minutes trip from Lima to this Chagual airdrome. And we start a solar system with batteries that work 24 hours, and at night this energy is stored, the solar generation in the batteries, and the batteries at night deliver energy to the system. They are in an uninterrupted system. It's an autonomous system, and the solar system needs to come with their storage solution. And this system brings benefits in reducing carbon footprint, user satisfaction, reduced costs, and we now have canteens, and we are planning to expand to have a control tower, etc., etc. And it was the first aerodrome, well, sustainable aerodrome, but works without burning petrol and uses clean energy throughout the day, and has also been awarded an award in the association. So they will buy clean energy and they become green, and that's it. But in our case, it's different. We had, as I said, a contract with an hydrothermal generator. Now we have signed a contract with 100% hydraulic generator, at least with hydraulic energy that supplies energy. We already got 2 green certificates, and this allow us to reduce carbon footprints, and we save a lot of money. And also, we move forward towards our goal. This is our 3rd testimony. This is a flagship case. We've been pioneers in installing a battery energy storage system And we propose this to buy energy when consumption is low, and we will charge it with energy from the grid. And at night, when the demand increases, we reduce diesel consumption, mainly the demand at peak hours. And with that, we reduce the cost per power and the admission charges that we need to pay. And I'm going to show you how this is going to be charged with clean energy, almost zero, and it represents a savings of $500,000 a year, and we save 400 tons of CO2 per year, and we have a production of 5,928 tons of CO2 by 2030. The characteristics: capacity of 4 megawatts up to 8 megawatts, an investment of $5.5 million. We have recovered almost half of it, and it has a useful life of 16 years. This is a transmission line project. We are a mining company that it's been for 45 years. We started with 25 kilovolts, and we needed to become one of 60 kilovolts to keep the voltage levels. So we have saved petrol and emissions around 4,000 tons of CO2 per year. We bring better quality of energy, and we prepare ourselves for the future of mining activity in the area. So this is just a new project that has started in August this year. It's placed in our main mine site, Santa Maria, located at 1,800 meters above sea level, and we started to reduce petrol use around 1,100 tons of CO2 by 2030. Whenever there is a cut of the supply of energy because of technical issues or vandalism, campsites, offices, canteens, dorms, medical posts still have lights because there are batteries installed. And of 625 kilowatts, and we have this thermal equipment, as Carlos Herrera Descalzi mentioned, said that the country he see this in a total renewable future with gas or other fossil fuel. That's the idea. Why? Because this allows us to have reliability. The mining sector shouldn't stop, cannot stop. The miners underground, they need their air to be pumped. So this is complicated. They need energy all day long, at all times. We have critical systems, and they cannot be left without electricity. So this is another testimony. We just started this in June. This is a photovoltaic solar plant of 7 megawatts hour per year. And this is the first metal mining, and it will reduce 15,000 CO2 by 2030 and saves a lot of money in petrol, and it gives us a most important position to have our own energy. For many mining companies in the country, this is seen as something that is not their business, but for us it's a necessity to survive, to keep the business model. Why? Because it's not to save costs, but to reduce emissions, and we need to show the shareholders the best activity. So this is what we've been saving in CO2 in tons in the past 5 years. The footprint reduced. We have avoided 62% of the goal. Our capex is $25 million, and we have avoided to burn petrol into almost $90 million. So we still need to execute a transmission line of 220 kilovolts. We've also got the easement, and there is another hydroelectrical project that is under the process of environmental changes. This, as I said before, to execute a project is not easy. Permitting takes like 3 years. The regionalization does not help that much because the representatives of the government are continuously changed, and we need to explain from scratch. We have this environmental impact statement that used to take months. It's taking years, and this is a nightmare to everyone here in the country executing projects. And as a result of this project, besides reducing the carbon footprint, this is 62% of the goal. And we have also avoided petrol use. We are cleaning our energy matrix. In this case is electrical energy, and also reduce the electricity costs and going toward mining energy transition. So what are we going to do then? We have 51 electrical locomotives at the galleries, and we are changing them from lead batteries originally installed to more efficient ones. So as you see, before the operator is inside the locomotive, beside the discharge chute, and now the operator is outside the locomotive and has a remote control to operate it. This is a safer way to do things. So it's important to communicate these things. For the mining company, the manufacturer is going to be safety. That's the #1 priority. So we prevent tons of CO2, 500 tons per year of CO2. We will provide more a safer work condition, and we also decarbonize as well our fleet of transportation. We will be with almost 2 years using these electrical buses, like in the city of Santiago and the city of Bogota, with this paved road to have an electrical buses. We need to have a paved, a compacted ground roads. We have a lot of ups and downs, very sinuous curves, dirt, humidity, adverse conditions. So there are too harsh conditions for a vehicle that is electric and also electronic. So it's been 1.5 years with great results. We've done a very important maintenance. We have corrected many things, and we have indicators that allow us to move on to the ones that we need to do later. The beneficiary is not only the employee, the worker, and we also reduce the consumption of petrol. And we also have a 4x4 electrical pickup, the first electrical pickup truck. We bought it, and it's been working since last year, December. And we started with one vehicle. We installed electric charging station. So the drivers that have used this electrical vehicle, they feel no sound. It has a good torque. It's even better than internal combustion vehicle, and our transportation, it's outsourced. Our contractors have started to place purchase orders of these vehicles. We have already 4 electrical vehicles, pickup trucks, and we are going to have 4 more. Little by little, our goal is up to 2050, but we think we will achieve our goal before that time. And I would like to talk about this afforestation project, Poderosa, with 45 years of age. 39 years ago, they started to plant trees around the mine site in the provinces of Sánchez Carrión and Patás, and around the operation. This task started as a circular economy to give sustainability to the galleries, and even in a way to recycle materials, and also to give job opportunities and resources to the surrounding communities. And this become more important to us through this Asociación Patás. This is an NGO that we've financed 100%, and so far we have 7.4 million trees planted in 6,200 hectares. You can see there, we've trained a lot the community around the site. We have planted fruit trees, native trees, pine trees, and other plants. And 6 years ago, we started not only to continue with this afforestation, but we started with this generative agriculture, less waste to. So we plant, we grow potatoes, foodstuff, and this is more beneficial. We take care of the land because this regenerative agriculture, we don't use the traditional methods, but we use organic materials in the soil to prevent destroying the fungi and the benefits elements in the land. And we train the whole personnel. There are also campaigns of planting. Our workers and kids are the more enthusiastic in this kind of work. And we are shifting our environmental approach. Other mining companies, they are thinking in an environmental approach related or concentrated in 80% to reduce the carbon footprint, but there are other footprints, water footprints, material footprints. As Dr. Arnoldos commented, the amount of footprints by the mining countries is huge, but we also move materials, and we also have biodiversity and energy footprints. So we are giving the same importance to all these footprints, not only to focus on the carbon footprints. So I'm just talking about decarbonization because this is the topic that I've been asked to share with you. But these are some actions that we've been taking to measure those footprints in nature, the carbon footprints that I've already explained. We have the liabilities, this is the thermal generation, and also the assets. Thanks to the afforestation and regenerative agriculture, we are capturing and sequestering carbon because plants absorbing carbon and releasing oxygen. The water footprint, this is the consumption of water in the mine. And as Anna said, we have this sponge effect in reforestation. Trees capture a lot of water, and this is important, and this is also beneficial for the regenerative agriculture. Material footprint, the amount of material extracted because of our activity, and an asset is the reduction of soil erosion thanks to this afforestation. And energy footprint, the consumption of electricity, fossil and renewable energy, and an asset, the energy from trees, roots, and the transfer to the soil. And the biodiversity footprint, through this biodiversity of soils, we are now having this franchise species I want to share with you. I would like to share with you the metabolic syndrome. What happens with want to visit a mine? We need to pass through a medical exam. No one with a health condition is allowed to enter the mine site because, first of all, safety is first priority in the mine site, people and equipment. So we comply. If we pass a medical examination, we are allowed to enter the mine. And let's see the health of this mine facility. So for the biodiversity footprint, it will be like the abdomen obesity when we measure the health of a human being. The carbon footprint, it's high blood pressure. Energy footprint is like resistance to insulin. Material footprint is increased triglycerides. And to explain what kind of syndrome we have, this is the evolution of what has been the mining model since their very existence. So mining has existed for over 3,000 years in the country. We are a mining country. So the very old mine sites, they didn't have any regulation, and there is not much any concern on environmental impact. So in the last 25 years, after the Kyoto Protocol, we need to start taking care of the environment. Like Peru and Latin America, we talk about a green mining activity to start contracting clean energy with the generators. So as Daniel Kamak was saying, this is not the case because we are in a very remote place and we need to buy energy. And this is the carbon footprint. Other mining companies would like to become sustainable, and I propose it to become sustainable last year, 2020, where they say, I'm going to be zero carbon. Everything that I emit, I'm going to compensate this since the very beginning, since I propose it. And there is a new model, the restorative mine footprint. And there is another model of the mining activity, and we should all go that path, the regenerative footprint of mining. So you are giving a benefit back to nature. You need to leave nature better than you found it at the very beginning. So let's see what the mining company Poderosa is kind of nervous. Please don't worry, I have good news. So let's see the KPIs. These are metrics by ounce produced. We have the carbon footprint, water footprint, material footprint, energy, and biodiversity footprints. And we have the assets per ounce of each of these footprints. You can see they are positive numbers. And when we see the wealth, we would have a metabolic syndrome if we are under 3. So, in other words, if we are bad 3, 4, 5, we need to be good 4, 5. So we have 4 out of 5 that are positive, not because of these 5, 6 projects of decarbonization, but because of this regenerative mining activity. With the plantation, the planting of these thousands of millions of trees, we have avoided a huge amount of tons. We have avoided a huge amount of tons of CO2 that we have produced in our whole life of the mine. We will continue with these regenerative mining activities. 4 out of these 5 indicators, we do this regenerative mining, and 1 is in green. And this shows me the flow of biodiversity. We are going from a soil biodiversity to a plant biodiversity and an air biodiversity. Yes, thanks to the afforestation that we are conducting. This takes me back to the story that I said at the beginning. So we've been able to rescue a small bird. This is the hummingbird. This is a bird that exists only in this like South America. This has been listed in and registered in Insert 4. We've started to plant the trees that I've been telling you about. And because we are planting this specific tree, this Aliso tree, this hummingbird called Alicia has brought her friends. So we've been witnessing the appearance of this hummingbird, the Alicia and Libertad hummingbird, appearing in these areas in La Libertad province. So as I was saying at the very beginning of the presentation, this picture, this drawing of my little son, this is precisely this hummingbird. To this 7-year-old, I explained what my conference was going to be about. So he told me that, yes, I understand now that you don't only extract rocks, but you take care or steward the environment, and I want to be also a miner. And this is the message that I want to share with you, and please take this seriously, afforestation in mining companies. And I want to close or wrap up my presentation. This is a Chinese saying: the best moment to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best moment is now. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, ingeniero.
Thank you, Engineer Estela, for your presentation on Minera Poderosa, and everyone who is working to decrease the footprint. Very nice ending for your presentation. Now we are going to move to the second part of this session. I would like to introduce Adriana Aurazo. She is the VP of Environmental, Social and Sustainability Affairs of Southern Peaks Mining. She will moderate this last panel. I would like to invite to also the panel members the following people: Mrs. Maria Cecilia Besenjac, Environmental Manager of Minera Andina del Sol Barrick from Argentina; Mr. Diego Lizana, Executive Director of Eco-Development in Chile; Mrs. Doris Hiam Galvez, founder and author of Designing Sustainable Prosperity for Mining from Canada; and Dr. Arnaldus van den Hulk, again, Director of the Observatory of Just Climatic Mining from the Netherlands. Thank you. First, I would like to thank the invitation of the Institute of Mining Engineers of Peru, the organizers of Perumin 37, led by Jimena Salaguren. Thank you for staying in this fourth block. I would like to especially thank the chair, Engineer Jose Estela, who just gave us an amazing presentation on how to do things right and how mining is definitely something that we need to consider. We all need to take care of our land. All, miners have this mission. And so this session deals with a very important topic. I have a privileged panel, just like every other panel that preceded this one today. So to begin, I would like to talk about the amazing experience that our panel members have, and also because each one of them plays a very prominent role. From your experience, and of course, from the elaboration of projects, you have participated of important projects, but you have also been leaders in the drafting of policies, of these changes that are being done in terms of decarbonization. I would like to know how you have been promoting them, and then also what have been the results that you have obtained, and maybe you haven't obtained them yet. So we would like to know when, how, and what do you need for us to do so that you can obtain the results. We will start with María Cecilia. Please, go ahead. I think you all have your mic right.
Por favor, desde tu rol, ¿cuál sería esa experiencia que tanto hemos conversado ya antes en la antesala? Cuéntanos, por favor.
Bueno, antes que nada.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank Perumin for the invitation to participate in this forum. It really is an honor to share the panel with you all. In line with what José presented, I also wanted to tell you what has been the road to decarbonization of the Veladero mine. The Veladero mine is located in the province of San Juan in Argentina. It is a gold and silver mine, barrick mine. It is located right in the border between Argentina and Chile, and which, in a way, Jose was also sharing the complexities, geographical complexities, and in our case, the climatic and meteorological complexities when creating projects to reduce the carbon footprint. So, Veladero was a trailblazer in the year 2007. It installed a wind generator, which is still working up to date. It's the one that is at the highest altitude in the world. Just for you to understand, it's 4,100 meters above sea level. It is a very complex project in terms of the installation and the design, because it was definitely adjusted to the conditions, the severe conditions of the mountain range. And then also the operation presents certain complexities because it has a range of operation. So whenever there are intense winds, performance goes down. However, it really has been a very reliable source of renewable energy, and it has contributed, it accounts for 1% of the energy of the mine. One of the latest challenges has been to get the spare parts, because it definitely is an equipment that's somewhat old, and also because there have been some restrictions on the imports in Argentina. It has been complex to keep it operational, but up to date it is still operational, and like I say, it accounts for 1% of the energy of the mine. In the year 2012, there were some tests done with solar panels, but also, well, the results that we got were not optimal because the energy demand of the mine is high, and also due to the weather conditions. Part of the year we have snow, significant snow. We couldn't consider that as an alternative. And then last, which I think is the most significant project, has been the signature of an agreement with Enel Chile, signature of a PPP for 8 years for 25 megawatts. This implies importing energy into Argentina, and that was also something quite challenging in terms of regulations, not only technical issues, but regulatory ones too. And Veladero invested $54 million to build 14 kilometers of a transmission line that will bring energy from Punta Colorada, which is a wind energy farm. That was quite a significant effort from the company. It allowed not only to replace energy that was generated by fossil fuels, but it also allowed to reduce the operational costs and extend the life cycle of the line. Now, in numbers, what did this mean? It meant that from 2022, which was the last year when we used the energy from the generators, we went from 99% of energy from the generators to 2023. It went down to 77% of energy powered by renewable energy imported from Chile. This meant 18% in the reduction of the carbon footprint. Also, it had a different impact because we had a significant reduction in the amount of trucks that were transporting fuels. These are trucks that have to transport fuel over a distance of 500 kilometers, and so that also meant quite a significant change. The transmission line also is very complex in terms of its operations and how it operates. Under normal conditions, it is reliable, but whenever there are certain weather conditions, we need to constantly monitor the line. At the Paso Guanacosonso, which is the highest point where the line goes through, we need to monitor the wind speed, we need to monitor the temperature at the leaching pad, because when temperatures go down below 16 degrees and the wind exceeds 100 kilometers per hour, or when we have a snow coverage that is greater than 10 centimeters, there is a system that is triggered to have co-generation of energy in the mine, and that is generator fed. So this allows us to have 100% energy supply. We are now trying to replace these generators, this co-generation, with energy storage, with batteries that are similar to the ones Jose mentioned. So lastly, we can mention some other initiatives about Scope 3 and demanding the most important suppliers We're also doing an inventory of their carbon footprint of all of the suppliers. We are giving priority to those who have specific decarbonization projects. And then one last project, which is also very interesting, and that also has to do with the articulation with the government and the benefits that that mining gives to the communities. We are working on a project with the municipality of Ilexia, which is the department where the mine is located. We are working on a project to develop a wind power farm so that it can provide energy to the whole of community, the community of Iglesia, not only to the residential part, but also to the industrial part of this municipality. It would be the first municipality that would obtain renewable energy. It would be the first one to get these benefits from the trust fund, mining trust fund. I am also engaged in the mining sector, and I also lead one of these environmental areas. And it is so important what you just mentioned. about being able to be transparent with information and open, but also working on the carbon footprint from the suppliers as well. I think that is also a big challenge. And then establishing benefits for the community through decarbonization that would go aligned with the operations. I know that climate issues are sometimes adverse, but something that is also important is that this is going to extend the life of the mine. And for us miners, this is one of the missions that we have, which is do things right, but keep on mining. And that is key in a business like mining. Thank you very much. And now, Diego, it is your turn. I know that besides your current role, you have worked in other important projects with Antofagasta Minerals Group, and you have also promoted many projects. I would like to get to know more. Thank you very much. I also would like to thank, like Cecilia, it is an honor for me to be in Perumin 37. I would like to reply to your question in maybe 3 parts. One, on the personal side. Second one is, executive and a corporate man in a mining company. And then third, in my current role. And I think the 3 of them are very related. First, on the personal side, I just want to have a quick survey. Who has a solar system at home, or a solar panel today, or something solar powered? Raise your hand. I have a solar powered system, and I can proudly say that the solar powered system has the same age that my oldest daughter has. Her name is Delia, and this is 3.5 kilowatts, and it's 13 years of age. The solar panels are quite old. It took me a while to install it in Chile back then, because 13 years ago it was nothing. I was completely not against the law, but outside of the law. Not against it, because there was no law. So, and I am lucky enough to do what I'm passionate about, to work in mining. Since I started working as a professional, I'm working in something that I am passionate about, and I don't think that there's a lot of people who can say that. And I say it proudly. And now I would like to tie this, and I'm sorry, just to finish with my anecdote. When I was building and installing these solar powered plant, my wife was pregnant with my oldest daughter. Now we have 2 kids, but this was 13 years ago, and my wife was pregnant. And so I said, when my daughter is born, I want our house to be solar powered. And when she grows up and she sees a solar system, it's not something that is so different for her, because she was born in a house that is solar powered. Now I can proudly say that it is like that at least that, I reached that target. Now, if I take these to the impact that I have been able to have in the mining sector, because it is the whole sector, it's not only myself, it is the mining sector. When I worked in Collahuasi mining sector between 2008 and 2014, we were able to do projects that were emblematic. They were flagship projects. The first solar power plant without subsidies from the state. And in Spain they used to have huge subsidies, but this was the first solar power plant that had a long term project without any subsidy. And of course the cost in Chile was much higher than in Peru, and this was, I'm talking about 2012, 2013. So why is this project so emblematic? Well, basically because when we presented this to the CEO, but then the CEO told us, you're crazy. How dare you? How are you going to bid for this? The whole mining sector told us, you're crazy. What are you doing? How? This is not going to work. And of course, the electrical sector, there were 3 or 4 companies that were dominating the whole market. And what they didn't want is for renewable energies to come in. So we went out to bid 11.5 megawatts to install. No, 12.5, sorry, megawatts of installed power. And so when we saw the bids, we thought, well, it was great. And so we went back to the CEO to show him how, what we were going to propose. And so, and instead of 12.5, we requested to have 25 megawatts approved. When he saw the project and when he saw the prices, compared to the very high prices of energy, he said, but why don't we have more? And so he went from not wanting anything to wanting more. So we stayed at 25, of course, because it was the first industrial plant that was going to be, installed there. And why is this so important? Well, basically because the experience in mining moves productive sectors. And the electrical sector in Chile, renewable energies in Chile, I can say that they would not be what they are today. We have over 11 gigabytes with photovoltaic solar. They wouldn't be what they are today if it wasn't for the mining sector. And that is key. And so I'm just trying to remember what Cecilia said, and I told her, in 2007, I was studying a master's degree on renewable energies in Spain. And one of the things that were touched upon in one class was the experience of the highest altitude generator that was being installed in Argentina in the middle of nowhere, which nobody knew that back then, with completely adverse weather conditions. It was that one, and I think that is key. So if now, and I'm going to wrap up, if I go to the stage where I am right now, in 2020, I also wanted to do something. I wanted to be hands-on, I wanted to develop. And so now we are supporting different mining companies like Anglo American Tech among Sierra Ora in Chile. And also now we're trying to work in Peru in projects that go from quantification of GHG, which, I will talk about later, and then decarbonization strategies with a fundamental variable, which, we know in the sector, in the mining sector, we know the mining sector from within, the good thing, the bad thing, the good and the bad and the ugly, in order to transform this into valuable projects. Thank you, Diego. Your experience is great. It goes from the practice, and now you are totally committed, and even in your personal life, I think that is also very important what you have mentioned. Many of us, this has happened. Jose mentioned this in his excellent presentation, how, even from, the families, your daughter who motivated you, like Jose's son, to have a better planet, to have a better quality of life, better health, and we can do things like Maria Cecilia's project, which are so, difficult. They face harsh weather conditions, but they can overcome many challenges. Thank you very much for your intervention. And now we have the participation of an incredible expert. So, Doris, can you please tell us how have you promoted decarbonization? I know that you are a leader in this topic in energy and mining, and we know your trajectory. What have been the results that you can share with us?
Thank you first to Jose Estela to inviting me to this panel and just to see your passion in this topic. Thanks for that. Decarbonization goes beyond changing energy, is to re-engineer the whole system. And also the role of the mining in the society. It is really to change how to extract, how to process, how to consume it, and how to manage the waste. I wanted to ask all of you in the room, you could generate waste every week, this size or this other size. Can you raise your hand who generates this amount of waste per week? And those generating waste this size every week. So I used to live in a very nice neighborhood in Canada, in Ontario, and our waste was like this, and our neighbors was like this every week. This big. Our electricity was half of it, and we didn't suffer. We opened the window when it was necessary and just reduce 1 degree Celsius of the thermostat in the house. If you open the windows, put on a coat, and that was it. So we need to start. So we need to change the society of overconsumption. We shouldn't continue with this kind of behavior. We shouldn't keep on driving those large cars that consume high volumes of fuel and emitting gas. And we need to love the environment because it is one of us in this earth, in this planet. So I wanted to start with something personal, and I really live decarbonization in everything that I do, in all my decisions. And I am really devoting the rest of my life so that there is a future for future generations. I am retired. I don't need to work, but I'm working more than ever because I really want to contribute significantly to save humanity. The planet is okay. We maybe are not good. For 20 years, I've been leading a project mining without holes, without trucks, without tailings, and technology exists for that. But we need to understand the geological body to design the process and extract the value of the rock. There is no need to blast everything and to take that waste with that much energy using crusher, and sorry to talk like that, but there are other ways. We need to rethink to do mining differently. It's in situ recovery. This is used in uranium, depending on the geological body. But this is just about the system. Is on a silo perspective. Everything as a whole: water, recovery, extraction, and the footprint will be just very small. So everything is going to be. It's like petrol. Everything it's on a. Well, if I come to explain this will take a lot of time, but I have been working for 15, 20 years in solving the problem of the industry image and the lack of balance between these two poor and rich communities. And I've also been in this project where the mining becomes from an extractor to a contributor to the region, but to be a catalyst. Now, the mining is the center of everything. If you need water, you build a water plant. They're replacing the government's role to be a catalyst, to work together, to create regional prosperity, regional thriving, just like a system. Energy, water, infrastructure, agriculture, and other companies that are ideal for the region so that they will continue after the mine ends and it has a finite life, and they will leave a legacy to the communities. Yes, Doris, to re-engineer, to redesign, to make a stop for a strategy to see mine with different eyes, because we are miners and we want to place mining in the best place and be a participant in the whole ecosystem and not be in the center of things. Yes, we are from the same tribe. In the panel, we have coincide that personally, that experience that you bring from your own life, from your childhood. I've been listening to another panel in these young people in Perumin, and you have lectures on your own personal life experience. And maybe, Diego, we haven't gotten to solar energy at home, but just thinking on the receipts, on how much consumption in the pandemic years, I've was able to measure my consumption and also the amount of waste produced at home as well. I was able to see that and measure it. So this is a great proposal that you have bring to the table. So yes, Arnoldus, from your role and from personally, we would like to know you more than a keynote speaker, but on the personal side of things. So please tell us, how do you see decarbonization and how we will promote this? And so I will go on the same lines of these other panel members. I will go on the personal experience. I'm going to share with you my personal experience. So for 7 years in my life, I was traveling the world, attending workshops and delivering workshops for professionals in renewable energy before the mining congresses, basically for them to understand what mining was about. But also, I had lawyers, economists. I've went to Australia 3 times, Toronto 7 times, Johannesburg 2 times, and I have another group here in Peru as well and in Chile. So, because I am a geologist and I came from the renewable energy, I was working in China, I knew about these topics a lot. And when the COVID came, and I stayed here in February in Peru, so I went back to Spain. Everything was separated. The group was separated, so we needed to see what we're going to do. So I'm going to measure my carbon footprint. So what is my carbon footprint? What was my previous years? 3 intercontinental trips, the amount of taxes that I took, so I got to 32.2 tons of CO2, and that's huge. And also taking into account the CO2 that I emit every day, 1 kilo per day, and women like 800 grams. And adding personnel and other fields, scope 1, 2, and 3. And I said, this needs to stop. I'm going to make my forecast every 3 months. So I want to tell you something. When this occurs, we need to see what we're going to do. We are all, well, I proposed to 3 of my friends. Jose, that was the most enthusiastic, the first virtual mining congress that was called COVID-Min. COVID-Min, in 3 months, was allowed to enroll over 300,000 people, over 45 conferences by 38 speakers, 17 countries, mostly from Latin America and so forth. And when this finished, your copywriting is very good, that the people go and enroll in the webpage. And I understand the importance of communication. I'm sorry for telling you this story, but I'm going to my point. I don't have a dryer machine. I do the dish with my own hands. This is a relaxation for me. So I use this. I'm going to weigh my suitcase with this small device, and I'm not concerned about carbon, right? But environment is my major concern. Yes, carbon is a problem. There are other problems, but as Jose said, and in that sense, 2 things. You see the 2 models, the Antofagasta mines, as Diego said, and the one that Jose said. We are talking about 2 companies that are not multinational companies. Antofagasta, yes, I know they're at the London Stock Exchange, but there is no one coming from abroad to tell them what to do to be cleaner. It's a Chilean company, and Peruvian company, innovation doesn't come from Silicon Valley or OES. So you are the ones that can do this, and I would like to show you experience that I had with Poderosa in that sense. Arnaldus, thank you very much. Yes, I know your career, and you have mentioned education. As it was mentioned, the redesign or re-engineering that needs to come from experts that will help to think about this re-engineering. So we all started with our own house. We have a role of this redesign, put that redesign into practice and also in our behaviors. Jose mentioned safety. For all mine, this is fundamental. And I remember when thinking about safety in mining and decarbonization, we also need to consider how that safety, as law says, comes to be a behavior. Decarbonization as well, we are with that mindset. So we have put into practice this. So this is good for miners because when you face, yes, you later, what is your carbon footprint? One, this is and this and that, and they'll just stop talking forever. So there are many people that talk, and do not know what they are talking about. And in decarbonization, it's the same. In decarbonization, if you make your own, you know about your carbon footprints, and and you explain it, your own kids will respect it. There are people that will say no to everything, no to mine, no to water, no to cows, and they do not know. Arnaldus, this is clear what you have shared with us. It's, Jose, you have shown us numbers. This metabolic challenge, I think that was very, very interesting, and be sure that we are all going to apply that. And we have data on how we behave in our day-to-day activities. In 2011, Miraflores started to collecting the waste in one area of the district. It was not, well, they started with one zone that was not mine. And because I'm a lawyer, I I need to read the El Peruano Gazette. My kitchen was really, really small, and I have like 3 waste bins to segregate waste. And I was a voluntary house because I volunteering myself for that. And there are now districts that have this segregation plan of waste. And I wanted to know where they took all the waste. At the end, they mixed them. So all the effort in segregating that was useless. So one Friday, during night, I wanted to see how they mixed everything. They mixed everything in one truck. So we drafted a policy for that segregation be transported in differentiated trucks. And this is because we have this awareness since the very behavior in our life. So please interrupt me whenever you want. So this is a privilege to have a captive audience this 4th day of Perumin with this very important forum, because we are in the same line to know that change that mining industry needs to redesign, to rethink, and to face challenges. That's what we are going to talk about. Maria Cecilia, what are those challenges that we will be facing? And maybe to share one with us that you deem it important to decarbonize.
Well, today we have heard much about the future of decarbonization, the future of the demand of critical minerals. Latin America is in a key moment when the demand is going to increase. And actually, we are also facing a paradox, because we will generate greater impacts to generate the critical minerals that decarbonization requires. So I think we can also use it as a big opportunity. Like Nuria mentioned, mining has to stop being considered as a problem. It needs to be part of the solution now. We need to communicate, as Arnaldo said, we need to persuade also, persuading the communities that mining has a value, that it can generate a value, that there are projects. And I think one of the most important problems is infrastructure. It is poor or sometimes non-existent infrastructure for energy generation. Most of the projects are in very remote areas, in areas where there's far from the urban areas and they don't have access to the grid. Therefore, any investment that is required is much higher and significant, and we don't really have access to funding, to major funding, to face this improvement. So I think it's also important that governments turn into strategic partners when promoting and generating opportunities so that these infrastructure can be improved. Thank you very much, Diego. Well, I want to go a little bit further back. If we think about 10 or 15 years ago, when the first few exercises to calculate their carbon footprint at the mining companies recognized the scope 1 and 2 of the footprint, except those companies that recognized scope 3, like Minera in Chile. And so they were trying to decarbonize scope 1 and 2. So when in Chile we had renewable energy, most of the companies migrated very rapidly to this kind of contract, and then they thought that they had cleaned almost 60 or 70% of the emissions, and then they thought that it was only 30-40%, which was scope 1 for transportation. But they had emitted the main carbon footprint, which is scope 3. And when they started calculating it, or at least publishing it, they realized that their carbon footprint that they thought they had controlled was actually very far from being controlled. And so now, what we need to see now on different, areas, it's just basically the amount of information, traceability of information, still for decision-making. To calculate scope 1 and scope 2, probably the challenge is not as big. But for scope 3, it's still a challenge. And here, I also want to make a caveat. It is not calculation of carbon footprint for reporting, for a nice report somewhere. It's to manage things. And that's where we have a radical change in quality and traceability of data. What we need to be able to quantify and to manage in the reality is how much does a SUV or a truck or a fleet emits. That's one thing. And the second important point basically is this issue of technology, existing technologies, so that the decarbonization goals of mining companies are aligned with what they are actually capable of fulfilling and meeting, because technologically they can. It's happened all around the world that some companies have been leading high technology projects for high mobility. But if you want to buy a car, you don't develop a car. There are companies, technological companies, and specialized in developing cars, and you would just hope that you go and buy. But something different has been happening here. The industrial sectors and the high energy companies, especially in developing companies, they have pending. They need to do more so that the mining sector can meet these goals by 2050. And the third point is generation. It's capacity building, internal and external. This is not trivial. When we talk about internal capacities, all of these are good to produce the metal. we understand the new capacities of the technicians and engineers and everyone in all of the areas, and we realize that the educational institutions, the ministries, and it's definitely this isn't easy or fast, so that the engineers of today and the future and all of the engineering fields can actually give response to what the mining needs and increasingly will need. Okay, Doris.
Estamos enfrentados a un desafío global. La sociedad necesita urgentemente.
Definitely, society needs the critical minerals, but the challenge is how are we going to provide them? We don't have 20 years to develop new mines. Maybe we have 10 or 15 tops. But how? How can we provide the minerals that are needed urgently? For instance, copper. Copper can take 30 years to develop a project. And if we look at some conservative figures, we have now 27 tons per year. It will go 27 tons per year by 2035. And so now we see that there is a gap between the production and the demand by 2027. And that is getting bigger and bigger because there are mines that will stop. And so the production will go down, but the demand keeps on going up. And so how are we going to do that? And it is not slight increases. It's much higher. And so the real challenge is to change our mindset, our way of thinking, to really get the maximum value of what we already have. So I think that is this is the change. This is the way that we need to do things differently. And that is a challenge that we are setting for the World Mining Congress. We invite everyone. Send your ideas, submit your ideas. The deadline to submit the abstracts is October 13th. We're going to discuss this because we believe that we can do it. So it really depends on how fast we can work together. And we will prepare all of the participants. Just leave all your assumptions behind. Just be open-minded, be open to challenge what we're doing today and explore new ways of doing things to be able to deliver these materials in 5, 10, or 15 years.
Y cuenta con algunos trabajos técnicos de parte de nosotros también. Creo que hay varios que van a postular al Congreso Mundial de Minería. Gracias. Arnoldus, por favor.
Yo ya lo hice.
I forgot that the Congress is on the same day of Inti Raymi, the festivities of the sun. So we're using this as a rebirth. The industry can be reborn as well. It is a movement for the industry goes towards the same direction, and we can furnish the minerals that are needed.
Positivo. Y que mejor que Arnoldus ya mandó su trabajo.
Yes, Arnaldus, I think you submitted your paper. Don't tell us because it's going, challenges. Just something that I forgot before. It's not just measuring the carbon footprint. I have my decarbonization plan to 2030. So if things keep on going like this, by the year 2033, everything will be decarbonized at my home. And anybody can come and can tell me that he is better than me. But definitely it is important. I do it myself, so maybe I'm dirty, but what do you do? So the challenges. Let's talk about Poderosa. So when they told us about this, you've seen it, right? The main idea that they had, is it is logical, many mining companies, is first we use solar, and of course it was logical. But I was saying, well, maybe it is not as logical as we think. And then it was also thinking of a mining rationale. It was harder to define well what kind of batteries or what, what we need. But, why? So in a mining company, within the limits of a mine, to have a hole digged, you need a permit that takes 2 years. Even if it's just a solar module, you need 2 years. But a battery, you put it on top, and that's it. And that's one. And then secondly, they don't understand the battery. They need, that this is going to be a brain. And the nice thing about Poderosa is that besides the diesel systems, they have also the wind system. And then second thing, something interesting, is why we are going to do this. And so I requested all of the invoices. It took me a while to understand, but it really helped me.
Que me envía la compañía a casa.
So, did you realize that almost half of what you pay has to do with the transmission and everything? You need to see this. And this is the peak. Not the peak of consumption. So if whatever you try to do, you will make it more profitable. So you can have the same machine working in 2 ways. But this is going to be more efficient. If it is more efficient financially, it will also help the financial department to make better decisions and more logical decisions. So I think that these kind of things this is what can help. We need to see the, things differently, but I think we all need to try to do things better, as our, director of the World Mining Congress says. Thank you. And actually, there is a saying that goes, do things differently for different results. So I think that's what it's all about. Decarbonization, it's a big challenge, but we see examples like Veladero, and we see that, before these difficulties, they're thinking out of the box. The CEO, can think, okay, how can we implement this? How can we actually implement the savings? And, overcoming the life of the mine.
Tengamos esa experiencia que tienen tanto Doris como Arnoldus de decir, bueno, repensemos, hagamos de lo de adentro. Ya mandó su trabajo, quiero de verdad leerlo pronto y esperemos que eso no signifique no avanzar en el ritmo que debemos. Y esa es la última parte de este bloque. Y con la experiencia que ustedes tienen, por favor, menciónenos así puntual, ¿no? ¿Qué significa no avanzar con el ritmo que debemos hacerlo? ¿Qué significaría? Por favor, María Cecilia.
Bueno, principalmente creo que significaría para las exportaciones una pérdida de competitividad ante otros mercados y otros países que ya están más avanzados en la descarbonización. Ya hay mercados que penalizan en cierta manera o tienen ciertos aranceles para productos que tienen alta huella de carbono, con lo cual estaría el riesgo de complicar las exportaciones latinoamericanas mineras. Y el otro punto que quería mencionar es la pérdida de licencia social, ya que cada vez más inversores, comunidades, gobierno, organismos internacionales, certificadores exigen resultados, ¿no? Reportabilidad, trazabilidad y resultados, y no cumplir, no llegar a esos objetivos puede significar también un conflicto social con comunidades, puede generar algún tipo de rechazo a proyectos y limitar la expansión de las empresas.
Gracias, María Cecilia. Qué importante lo que mencionas. Diego, por favor.
Sumado a la competitividad y a la licencia para operar, yo destacaría también el punto relacionado a lo que es, disculpe, tenía la idea y déjeme mirarla rápidamente. Básicamente al cambio que significa o a ir contra la corriente y no hacerse cargo de lo que es algo inevitable y que es la descarbonización. Porque es importante entenderlo y la urgencia que tiene. Básicamente porque si no las compañías no van a ser capaces de llegar en el momento adecuado a tener los resultados que tienen que cumplir con todos sus stakeholders internos y externos. Además, entender que esto no es un cambio de equipo. Esto no es traer un equipo eléctrico por uno diésel. Conversando con una amiga de GIZ Alemania, llegamos a una conclusión básicamente de que este cambio que estaba ocurriendo es una revolución energética desde el punto de vista de la descarbonización. Lo que logramos construir desde el punto de vista de movilidad, de logística, en más de 100 años de historias con el diésel, necesitamos y queremos cambiarlo en no más de 15 años, al 2050, a una matriz eléctrica. O sea, el que diga que esto es fácil, el que diga que esto es simple, es porque probablemente no entiende en el mundo que está viviendo. Y con eso quiero tocar el otro punto, que es las condiciones habilitantes que se requieren para que esto realmente se lleve a cabo. Y esto es porque es importante, porque hablamos de infraestructura en los primeros bloques, hablamos de infraestructura, hablamos de sistemas eléctricos, sistemas energéticos, tanto propios como de terceros que nos alimentan. Hablamos de electromovilidad, que no la generamos nosotros, viene de alguien. Hablamos de capacidades, hablamos de sistemas de carga, que así como nos demoramos 1, 2, 3, 10 años en generar un proyecto minero, el generar las condiciones políticas, tanto de lo que es reglamentación externa asociada al ecosistema país, básicamente, y todas las modificaciones también de los reglamentos internos de unas compañías mineras enormes, como ustedes, por ejemplo, como BHP, como Collahuasi o como AMSA, no es inmediato, no es rápido. En uno de otros eventos que estuve durante la semana, hablaban sobre el transporte de GNL, de camiones. Y cómo la primera adversión que tuvieron los transportistas era que el chofer no quería manejar el camión a GNL. ¿Por qué? Porque le tenía miedo. Imagínense ahora un CAEX a hidrógeno. Un camión chico a hidrógeno moverse. O sea, estamos hablando que necesitamos un cambio de mentalidad, un cambio radical que tiene que ser promovido desde el interior de las organizaciones con una gestión del cambio adecuada, que no va a ser de la noche a la mañana y que si no empezamos hoy, en la realidad, lograr los objetivos van a ser cuesta arriba.
Gracias, Diego. Doris, por favor, ¿qué significa no avanzar al ritmo que debemos?
Que si no avanzamos todos abren su teléfono, todo está en el teléfono. Bueno, eso es una broma porque tenemos que poner un poco más de energía, de manera que nos...
La energía eléctrica, la matriz
eléctrica.
Entonces,
marcha atrás, más emisiones, más conflictos, y es como apagar la luz al futuro y renunciar el rol de la minería, que puede ser la solución al futuro.
Gracias, Doris Arnoldos.
En 2 palabras, no future.
Muchas gracias. Y de hecho, para no dejarnos con ese sinsabor de que no tenemos futuro y que hemos tenido una jornada tan gratificante, porque creo que sí hay esperanza, y se los digo verdad de corazón, tu presentación, José, nos ha dado esa esperanza de que sí se puede desde el sector minero. Los voy a dejar con José Estela para que dé sus palabras finales, pero antes quiero agradecerles a todos por su presencia y a ustedes, un panel de lujo de verdad, y para ustedes les brindaremos todos un fuerte aplauso. Muchas gracias. Gracias por haber venido al Perumin 37 desde sus diferentes países, mostrarnos su experiencia, todo lo que hemos aprendido y además el saber que necesitamos claramente una estrategia país de minerales críticos. Eso creo que es fundamental. Gracias, y lo vamos a seguir viendo seguramente en el Congreso Mundial de Minería. Nuevamente un aplauso y nos preparamos para la foto.
Gracias a los panelistas. Y ahora vamos a dejarlos con el ingeniero José Estela para que pueda dar las conclusiones del foro del día de hoy. Adelante, ingeniero.
Buenas noches. Voy a proceder a dar las conclusiones de toda esta jornada del día de hoy. Nos hemos apoyado con inteligencia artificial. Dos relatoras han estado transcribiendo, los señores relatores que están aquí, tanto las exposiciones como los paneles, y hay que utilizar la tecnología. Y lo tienen todo grabado, no solamente está en video, sino está transcrito ya. Y gracias a inteligencia artificial se les ha pedido que hagan un resumen. Y el resumen está acá, que voy a proceder, que le he hecho algunas breves anotaciones de que también el ser humano tiene que aportar un poco. Entonces, quiero, como parte final de este foro de transición energética minera, decir que ha sido muy enriquecedor. Ha sido un espacio de diálogo entre los sectores mineros y energético, autoridades como exministros de Energía y Minas, la academia, organismos internacionales en un momento decisivo para el Perú y para la región, que es la transición energética minera, ¿no? En este escenario, el Perú puede asumir un papel protagónico debido a su destacada ubicación como productor mundial de no solo de cobre, sino de otros minerales críticos, y es una oportunidad única no solamente para nosotros, sino para los países de la región que han participado aquí. Entonces, los conferencistas, los panelistas han ilustrado y compartido datos importantes sobre los retos, lo que vienen haciendo, lo que afrontamos para lograr aprovechar esta alta demanda de minerales críticos y avanzar en la transición energética, que en el fondo es una transición minera. Lo que es crítico es la minería, lo explicó muy bien el doctor Arnoldus. En la actualidad en el mundo hay una brecha entre oferta y demanda de minerales críticos, principalmente el cobre. Para aprovecharla requeriremos de mucha innovación, aprovechar diversos modelos que se han descrito en este foro, como minería circular, reprocesamiento de relaves, reciclaje, modelo de minería 4.0, regeneración y además una adecuada gestión de políticas públicas. Es evidente que tanto Perú como Chile, que producimos cerca del 40% del cobre mundial, junto con Ecuador y Argentina, podemos consolidar a la región como epicentro de una transición energética, siempre que afiancemos el desarrollo de una minería sostenible y competitiva. La producción de minerales críticos deberá hacerse con estándares internacionales, como son criterios ESG, certificaciones como la Copper Mark, para garantizar una minería responsable y sostenible. La gobernanza y la estabilidad política se constituyen en los retos centrales. Para lograr el éxito en este marco de transición energética necesitamos generar estabilidad política para generar confianza, a fin de no impedir la atracción de inversiones para proyectos mineros de largo plazo. Se ha dicho también, y con razón, que el Perú debe ser inteligente en usar sus recursos energéticos. En el contexto de una transición energética, que como ya mencionamos es una transición minera, se requiere actualizar nuestra política energética, que no es labor solamente del Ministerio de Energía y Minas, es una labor conjunta de muchos sectores como transporte, medio ambiente, la academia, los concesionarios, como lo hacen otros países. Y además necesitamos contar con un plan nacional de minerales críticos. Es otra de las conclusiones importantes de este foro. Y en este contexto es importante también mencionar lo que han dicho los expertos, que el Perú posee pues un enorme potencial para explotar los diferentes tipos de recursos energéticos, como la energía hidráulica, la energía eólica, solar, acompañado por supuesto de sistemas de almacenamiento, además de utilizar nuestro recurso gasífero, que es muy importante y que debemos seguir con la labor de exploraciones. De allí la importancia de no descuidar este diseño de nuestra política energética. Se ha dicho también que ha sido históricamente reactiva y que ha carecido de una visión estratégica a largo plazo, en el caso de nuestro país, y que ha oscilado entre modelos de control estatal y de inversión privada con reformas regulatorias que se constituyeron en los principales motores de crecimiento. No obstante, el modelo actual surgido en el año 1992 del sector eléctrico ha sido exitoso al eliminar racionamiento eléctrico continuo y fomentar una robusta expansión de la capacidad. Pero recientemente la inversión se ha desacelerado debido a la sobreoferta y la falta de nuevos proyectos. Es pues un momento para pensar en nuestro futuro energético y en una política energética nacional eficaz que promueva la competitividad minera. Se ha sugerido que el enfoque debe priorizar la soberanía, la conservación de nuestras riquezas, adoptando un control de valores enfocado en la sostenibilidad y gobernanza. En este marco, la industria minera tiene sin duda un potencial para ser una gran fortaleza, pero solo si actúa de forma alineada y con un objetivo común. Se ha planteado también darle un mayor valor a nuestra minería. Tanto Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador y otros países de la región tienen la oportunidad de ser líderes en este campo, desarrollando soluciones innovadoras que no solo benefician a la industria, sino que también fortalezcan la economía y mejoren la calidad de vida de sus habitantes. Necesitamos también comunicarnos más, no solamente en nuestro país, sino en todos nuestros sectores, y saber comunicar a los demás lo que hacemos y hacia dónde vamos. Cierro con dos frases que me gustaron mucho en todo este foro. La primera es que una sociedad baja en carbono es una sociedad alta en metales. La segunda es que existen tres cosas inevitables en la vida: la muerte, los impuestos y la minería. No podemos evitar la minería, pero sí podemos decidir qué tipo de minería queremos. Y es hacer una minería que sea amigable, que sea regenerativa, como se ha explicado en este foro, y que sea la minería de la cual todos nos sintamos orgullosos para nuestras generaciones. Muchas gracias por su presencia y participación. Me complace declarar clausurado nuestro primer foro dedicado a la transición energética minera. Muchas gracias. Quiero invitar a Rosa María y al doctor Arnoldus, con quienes han sido los gestores, junto con quien les habla de este foro, que nos hemos, como se dice, roto el pellejo en este año y medio de preparación, para una foto en el centro de agradecimiento. Y a Pamela Gutiérrez, por favor, actora principal también de este foro.